welcome to another edition of the Royal Lions UK podcast, episode 321, Kings of the North. Again, my name's Matthew Turner, alongside Ashley Soden, and Stephen Collins is back in the building. How you doing, boys?
Doing great, doing great.
Back to back to fucking back.
Steve, it's good to have you back on, man. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm all good. Just grinding through my treatment. It's been tough, but the Lions have really been keeping me going. Yeah, just amazing. I'm just so pleased with how the season's ended up, because after that Bills game, I think we were all a bit like, okay, could it all start to crumble? But they haven't, and immense.
Yeah, absolutely spectacular game. We're going to go through the review of the game and go through some news in just a second. But first, please do join us on our Discord channel. Some really great discussion last night, and has been all the way through the season and will be all the way up through until the draft. So the link is in the live chat right now. We'd love to see you there. College Football Podcast is going to come up later on in the week. It's going to happen, though, before the college football semi-finals. So the boys are going to be talking more about the Hula Bowl rosters and perhaps previewing a little bit more about those college football semi-finals. So do be sure to check them out then. And please don't forget to like this episode and sub to the podcast. You guys know what to do by now. And follow Lions Nation Unite, Herman Moore's project to bring the best in Lions content creators together. We are YouTube monetized, Twitch affiliated. There's a tip jar down below as well. So if you're enjoying what you're listening to, then please do show some love in that way. That would be fantastic. All right. We're going to start with some injuries, just to start on the only down point of the day, and then we'll be in relentless happy times. But Jahmyr Gibbs took a massive hit in this game by Van Ginkel. Blown up screen, which Goff threw into. The majority of the time, he's been really good at kind of turfing those and living to fight another day. But Gibbs really ate one by Van Ginkel, and he looked, shaken up. Doctors had a look at him before he came back into the game. Haven't had any update as to whether he's feeling any effects afterwards. Of course, he's got a week off now, so he'll probably be fine even then. Branch took a big hit to the head in the second quarter. There's no instant signs of concussion during the game, but we're going to monitor that. Pat O'Connor left the game with a calf injury in the third quarter, and he was ruled out subsequently. No news as yet as to the extent of that. The big one for the Lions, Terrion Arnold, has an ankle or foot injury. It was called a foot in the game, and then they mentioned something about a calf as well, but that was Pat O'Connor, sorry, my mistake. It was caused by Al-Qadim Mohammed landing on it in the third quarter. It bent a weird way live, not great. The x-rays were negative, which is a good thing, but he's going for an MRI today. Terrion Arnold in the aftermath said he's hopeful to play, or would not accept the idea that he would not be able to play in the divisional round, but it did seem like a bit of copium on his part. We are hoping for the best for him. I think that you're looking at a sprain on his ankle by the looks of it, and if it's a high ankle sprain, his season could be done. If it's a low grade high ankle sprain, he could come back later on in this. He could come back for the championship game or maybe the Super Bowl. If it is a low ankle sprain, he might be able to play through it, but it's not ideal for a cornerback who has to explode, so we'll have to see. Levi Onwuzurike, who had a spectacularly good game, suffered a right ankle injury in the fourth quarter, sat out a couple of snaps but came back in, and then Zeitler's right hamstring seemed to go late in the fourth quarter, sat out the rest of the game. Haven't heard anything about that yet either. We shall see about that. In terms of elevations for this game, defensive tackle Chris Smith came up, as well as cornerback Stanley Thomas Oliver. Signed from the practice squad was he? Maurice Norris? Yes, he was. Sorry, my mistake. Yep, signed from the practice squad. And also activated from injured reserve. The two big ones for us coming back. Linebacker Alex Anzalone, and then the wide receiver and punt kick returner Khalif Raymond. Tom Kennedy, after being waived, was re-signed to the practice squad. And Emmanuel Mosley, the corner with an illness, was placed on NFI. I mean, it must be a pretty bad illness to be put on a non-football injury list, given that you have to take off 4 games now. So basically ends his season pretty much, which is sad. Otherwise, with the Lions win, they got a 15 wins, which stretches the franchise record for regular season wins, which previously stood at 12. Winning division back-to-back years. It's the first time for the Lions since the 1952-53 and 53-54 seasons. It's the highest seeding in franchise history in the playoffs since seeding began in 1975. Jahmyr Gibbs finishes the NFL regular season as the scrimmage touchdown leader with 20 touchdowns. The next nearest was James Cook and Derrick Henry with 18 each. And then today was the first day where the teams with head coach openings could invite coaches to interview. And sadly for the Lions, or positively, I guess, depending on which way you look at it, the Lions have had 5 such invitations. Ben Johnson has had invites from the Chicago Bears and New England Patriots, and Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator, has invites from the Chicago Bears, New York Jets, and New Orleans Saints. So that's all of the news. And Steve-O, just to start with you, injuries, there were quite a few of them potentially. All of them seem hopefully minor enough, bar one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Arnold's the big one with Carlton Davis still out. But I mean, he's got 2 weeks now with the one seed so massive because we've got that bye, so we've got 2 weeks till the next game. So I think I saw on his social media a picture of him and Amik, and he seemed to be like pretty positive. So we'll see. But yeah, and I think Zeitler, if he has done his hamstring, Mahogany's come in and been pretty good. So yeah, I mean, we've got 2 weeks to heal up, so that's just going to be massive. That's just, I mean, obviously massive to be back to back, massive to take the division, get the 1 seed, but the bye, I mean, it's just massive.
What about you, Ash? What do you think about all of this?
Yeah, completely agree. So like, Arnold is the big one because we saw it last year, and it is heading to that point. Matt, you even mentioned it on the stream. It's like, oh God, we might have another NFC championship game where Kindle Vildor is starting outside for us. That's a bit of a flashback. But yeah, getting the bye is great because then, yeah, if Zeitler has done his hamstring, he can rest it out. Maybe it's just a strain. He can kind of take the 2 weeks off. Same with Branch. He can go through the concussion protocol and not have to worry about being ready for a Saturday, Sunday game next week. He's got that extra week to get right. If there is, he just have to go through the protocol. Same with Patrick Connor, who's kind of been an underrated mid-season pickup. Like, he's played pretty well the past couple of weeks. I know he obviously got penalty or 2 this week before getting the injury, but he's a good interior piece to have. And the good news of getting the bye is a certain Mr. Knuckles could also maybe be back for the divisional game. When he was asked about it on the sideline, because he was standing on the sideline with Hutch and with Derek Barnes, he was asked about it by, I think it was Melissa Stark, and he was like, let's just say I'm excited, when he was asked about the possibility of coming back soon. So the fact we could go into the divisional round against whoever it will be with those guys fully healthy, but also maybe a few more reinforcements, just makes it all the better for us.
And people talking about returning people from injury reserve, but we were counting yesterday and we got to 7, I think, and you get 8 in the regular season returns from IR and an additional 2 in the playoffs. So we have 3 returns left from injury reserve. Now, if you have Monty, Hutch and Barnes, that's 3. What?
Monty's not on IR.
Oh, he's not on IR. Of course he's not.
Hutch,
okay, so Hutch, Barnes, Davis, and then that rules out anyone else, potentially. So no one else can go on injured reserve and return, and you'd have to sacrifice one of those 3. So if any of them have a setback from here, they wouldn't be able to come back. Is anyone else on injured reserve actually worth talking about?
Ennis Rakestraw.
And Rakestraw, yes. So
Barnes is probably not coming back. He was just there. He had to basically to fight glycogen stats to be allowed to stand on the sidelines. Hutch could. Monty obviously not on IR, but yeah, it'll probably be Barnes sacrifice, especially if let's say it is a high ankle sprain for Arnold. Considering Rakestraw's injury was a hamstring and he was put on, it was seemingly relatively mild, but let's put him on IR, give him that time. He could come back in and at least take some significant reps for us.
I mean, I think Hutch coming back is still a very long shot, but I think Carlton Davis has got a chance, and he would be massive coming back.
Hutch looked pretty good on the sideline during the coverage. I'll just say that him standing on the sideline, walking around, like he didn't seem like his walking was hampered. And if he does he said he harbours hopes of getting back for the championship game, which is, 2 weeks away? No, 3 weeks away.
3 weeks away.
So if he can start running in 2 weeks' time and have a week's worth of running, it's probably not enough to be anywhere near fit. But
no, and sharp as well.
that's the key, isn't it? To think he's going to be anything like himself is probably hoping for, well, pie in the sky, to be honest. But
True. It might look like James Houston last year, because obviously that was a similar situation. He was activated off IR around this time last year. Didn't really get any snaps to the championship game. But you saw him on the sideline. He had a little thing in his ear. So I think he was still getting the play calls. He was still being integrated into things. At least his mind will be. So even if it is, he comes back for the NFC Championship game and he's on a snap count. If we get there, we get an extra week off, because obviously there's the Pro Bowl week. So he's got 2 more weeks to build up that like match fitness, to use the kind of term over here. And then, yeah, if we do get to the Super Bowl, he won't be like the 80% player, like 80% snaps player that he was before the injury. But he can still probably play 50, 60, 70% and still make a decent impact.
Yeah. Let's talk interview requests then. We were expecting them coming in. I think one thing that's notable and hilarious is apparently there is mutual disinterest between Ben Johnson and the Jets. Apparently Ben Johnson doesn't want anything to do with them and the Jets don't want anything to do with him, which I think is notable and funny.
I'm trying to think of something like on the offensive side of the ball in the Jets that would just be so toxic and horrible that Ben Johnson wouldn't want to get involved. I can't think what that would be. Any ideas?
I think it's Tyler Conklin. Doesn't like him.
I think you'd need to do your own research a bit better, Matt.
Oh no. Does he not like Sauce Gardner?
Maybe Garrett Wilson. I don't know.
Yeah, no. There's some sort of locker room cancer in there. Don't know what it is, but
yeah, it could.
Hey,
who knows? Who knows?
Anything. I mean, maybe it was a time with the Dolphins and he just rubbed them up the wrong way.
Who knows?
But anyway, it sounds like a lot of the reporting that came out before the game is that Aaron Glenn is the leader in the clubhouse when it comes to the Saints job. We basically predicted this halfway through the season when in a mailbag, someone said who could leave out the two. And Glenn to the Saints seemed like the most obvious one given their history there. And with the Dolphins job not becoming available, I think that might have been one that Ben Johnson might have been attracted by. So by that not becoming available, that was the other obvious one to me. Because compared to any other job in terms of like quarterback, weapons, location, that all kind of seems to fit a little bit Miami for Ben.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of the situation? Yeah, I mean, we haven't really asked you, Steve, about any of this. What do you think about those two guys and the niceness of the fits so far for the ones that they've been asked to go to, and to the likelihood of them moving on, and what you think, how that reflects on them, and all that sort of stuff? I
mean, I would have thought that the Jaguars was not a bad bet for Ben Johnson with Trevor Lawrence. I would imagine the Jaguars want someone who's going to like try and do so. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is not a bad quarterback, but he's playing badly. But he's been playing badly in a bad offense for a long time. So I would have thought that maybe the Jags would have been a good option. I'm really surprised that the Giants brought Daboll back, because I would have thought for either of the guys, the Giants, it's one of those like franchises that kind of like tough to turn down. What else? And the Patriots, obviously. I mean, again, I think in terms of New England, with the whole situation where they've kind of done the coronation of Jared Mayo and said, he's the chosen one to replace Belichick, and then binned him after a year, you, as a coordinator, you'd have real doubts about wanting to go into that situation with the lingering smell of not only Belichick, but Matt Patricia as well. So, yeah, I kind of think Johnson to the Jags and Aaron Glenn to the Saints kind of makes sense. But we'll see. I mean, there's still some quite decent candidates, and I guess the Chicago Bears as well for Ben Johnson.
What do you think?
But it's it will be interesting to see whether, because there's so much involved in the head coach role that, like, particularly someone like Ben, who seems to be a bit of an introvert, doesn't have to deal with. And maybe he just thinks, do you know what? I'm quite happy being an offensive coordinator until the absolute dream job comes along.
Yeah, so I think the reason why, well, number one, they probably haven't started announcing interviews, but I think the reason Ben probably won't go for Jacksonville, and I'd say the same for Glenn, is for one person and one person alone, and that person is Trent Baalke, because they've got rid of Peterson, but they're keeping that guy around, like, which has mystified everyone across the league. You watch everyone's reactions from all the insiders and that, and they're like, what the fuck? But the reason Ben's interested in New England, despite Robert Kraft and all the stinking at, is for another person, someone who's actually he knows reasonably well because they both went to UNC. Admittedly, Drake May went there 10, 15 years after Ben, but Drake May, who is supposedly Ben really loved in the draft process, which makes me like him even more because so did I. But the fact that he gets to work with that kind of tools at QB, which is why obviously Chicago is seen as a big one for with Caleb. It's the same with Drake in New England. Yeah, he's going to have to rebuild the offensive line there. He's going to have to get a few more weapons around him. But you've got the first cornerstone there in your franchise QB who, when put in the right situation, as shown at UNC, he can easily pass for 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, lead offenses to big offensive days, even if the defense still is playing catch up, kind of like Goff's had to do here the first couple of years. So both can fit, but both have got that sort of stink of the ownership. So while Ben's, I suppose he has said yes, and he is interviewing with both this week while we're in the bye week, so it doesn't interfere with game planning. I think he would, if we win the Super Bowl, let's say, he'd probably still stay here because, yeah, is it worth pitching your wagon to those kind of owners where, yeah, Kraft's fired, the chosen one within a year, the Bears are just rotating through guys. They both seem kind of like poison chalice jobs where you go wrong here because they've got big media plus in them as well because they're big names. Your kind of hopes of being a second-time head coach are very slim, except for, if you're the New York Jets and you're offering interviews to Matt Nagy. It's just you just look at the list of guys that New York Jets have requested interviews with or had interviews with. Suppose Rex Ryan thinks he's the favorite to get the job. Rex Ryan has been sat at the media desk for like the past 6 years.
I'd rather have Rex Ryan than Matt Nagy. Sorry.
Oh yeah, same, but it's just kind of funny. Just like you look at the list of people, like GM wise, are actually doing kind of well with their interviews, but head coaching wise, the fact they basically said no to Ben is kind of funny. But Glenn, I think, could handle it there. Just look at him yesterday. The fact that we're so far ahead and he's just chilling on the bench letting Shep call the plays. I think Glenn's the kind of personality that can handle it, and of course, he's got the connection there. He used to play there, so. Well, obviously, you've got the New Orleans connection with him trying to finish his career there as a player and then being a DB's coach there for a while. It's also got that connection with New York as well. So they're actually a kind of sneaky team for them to maybe, for him to maybe go there if New Orleans go a different direction. But at the same time, New York coming off a defensive head coach who was seen as the leader of men on a team that was overperforming with some of the weapons it had. It's kind of the same with New Orleans with Dennis Allen, kind of that connection they want to get rid of the Sean Payton era the fans do. So maybe Glenn won't be 100% welcome there. Honestly, I could see both getting head coaching jobs. I can see both neither of them getting it because they're like, hang on, is it worth me risking my entire now career? I'm going elsewhere to a big media place and got it potentially falling apart, or do I stay here, win another couple of Super Bowls, and then when that perfect opportunity comes around, like for Ben, Cincinnati, that's the one that I'm surprised they've kept Zach Taylor around, another fired their defensive coordinator who, because he used to be in Miami with Dan Campbell, there's a guy, if Glenn does go, there's a guy to keep another eye out with, along with Dennis Allen and Shep for the DC role. That's the kind of opportunities he's looking for. Yeah, Miami, Cincinnati for Ben, and then for Glenn, somewhere where he's got the decent corners and the pass rush to help him. That's what he's looking for.
Yeah, and you've still got the odd character. I mean, Doug Peterson's been fired, and he's the kind of guy that always seems to interview well, and people seem to want because he's got this reputation of leader of men and all this kind of stuff. Vrabel, absolutely the same. I mean, Peterson and Vrabel are both guys that look good on paper, but always turn out to be something less. I think Zach Taylor has just saved his own skin in Cincinnati because I think the DC was just a human sacrifice so he kept his job. But when you think about the talent that he's wasted, for me, Zach Taylor's on thin ice. But yeah, you just don't know. You just don't know what's going on with these crazy billionaire owners. And I know that they always say there's like a thorough interview process, but let's face it, it's going to be Khan in Jacksonville that's calling the shots. It's going to be Kraft in New England. So if they don't gel with the candidate, then they'll hire a Vrabel.
Yeah, the only thought I have about the Patriot situation now is that the way it's been poisoned actually is maybe just far more sinister than I was kind of allowing myself to think last time. I thought it was just the acknowledgement that they'd made a mistake. But from what Kraft said, he basically said he was scared to lose Gerard Mayo the year before, so he wrote it into the new deal for him that when the job became available, they guaranteed him the job to become head coach. If you remember, there was very little interview process when the job became free because they were obliged to give him the job. So I think what happened is that Kraft knew it was the wrong move last year, that Mayo wasn't ready. They didn't really want to fire the head coach before, but they were brought to that decision early. And then because they had to give Mayo the job, they did, but actually didn't want to give it to him at all. And so they did it to stop avoiding a breach of contract. And that was more important than just getting the right guy in, which is pretty shit, really. But yeah. Anyway, let's move on and talk about this fantastic game that the Lions really pulled out of nowhere. Coming into this game, the Lions are one of the worst defenses in football in the last month. They were also one of the best offensive teams in football in the last month. They had scored over 30 points in each of their last 4 games coming into this. That run continues, of course, but it's one of the best defensive performances that the Lions have ever put on. In my fandom of the team, it was spectacular. The Lions get out to a 10-6 lead at the half, in big thanks to Will Rijkaard for a kick out of bounds with 20 seconds to go in that half, and then 21-3 victors in the second half, meaning a 31-9 overall score. Jared Goff 27-33 for 231, a touchdown and 2 picks, a QBR though of 84.5 and a passer rating of 80.7. On the ground, Jahmyr Gibbs was electric, 23 for 139 and 3 touchdowns. He also had 5 of 5 for 31 and a touchdown through the air. And Craig Reynolds chipped in with 8 for 39 of his own on the ground. In the air, we were led by Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6 for 7 for 77. Gibbs had the only receiving touchdown for the Lions, but Laporta had 7 catches. Jameson had 6. God, that must be JMO's lowest average for ever. 6 catches for 34 yards. Very, very low. The Vikings on offense were putrid all day. Sam Darnold, 18 for 41 for 166. No touchdowns or picks. Cam Akers had 6 for 65 off the back of a 58-yarder. And then Aaron Jones had 10 for 45. He had 1 rush in the second half, I think. That's pretty much it. And I think it was due to the injury he sustained earlier on this week. And then Minnesota, they had Justin Jefferson lead the way for them with 3 of 9 for 54. Jalen Naylor, 3 of 4 for 53. And not much of anything else, to be quite honest. On defense, both teams had 2 sacks apiece. They had 5 other TFLs. For the Lions, sacks by Muhammad and Smith. Smith won very early on. They did have 6 passes defended, though, the Lions. 1 each for Vildor, Arnold, Smith, Robertson, Branch, and Anzalone. And 10 quarterback hits in addition to the 2 sacks they had. 1 by Chris Smith, 2 by Pascal, 1 by Onwuzurike, 1 extra by Smith, 1 by Campbell, 1 by Joseph, 1 by Anzalone. That's in addition to the sacks that we had. So lots of pass rush up there. The interceptions for the Vikings were by Ivan Pace and Harrison Smith. And otherwise, Jake Bates was perfect, and Will Rijkaard missed a field goal in there too. Steve, this game was led wire to wire by the Lions, but it was gritty and tense in that first half. 2 red zone trips where they only came away with 3 points in there. Got another field goal where they didn't get into the red zone, and then screw things up at the end of the first half to give us a little bit of a cushion. I mean, it felt like a massive win to go in 10-6 ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I was just, I very seldom utter these words, but I was just really enjoying Pro Football Talk because they had Mike Florio and Chris Sims live from Ford Field doing their show today, and notorious Vikings fan Florio was sat there like he was like sucking a lemon with some sort of anal butt plug device inserted. In terms of his grudging respect for the Lions. But, he he called the game really well when he was doing his review, and he said, the Lions won all the big battles, and the Lions won all the little battles, and they got the detail right, and the Vikings didn't. And Darnold had his worst game of the whole season. I think he played really badly. I think against the Jags about halfway through the season, but that was his probably worst performance, and it was because the Lions were able to just dial up so many different looks, so many different pressures, and he just looked absolutely shook the whole game. He just looked terrified of what was in front of him. And when he did go through his reads and found someone open, he overthrew them, and he did it twice to Justin Jefferson. But let's not put it all on Darnold. This was, for me, the best I've ever seen Amik Robertson play. He was immense. We hear all this crap about how good Justin Jefferson is, but he made him look really ordinary. And then also on the other side, you've got Terry and Arnold, who was all over Jordan Addison. And Addison, I think, had 6 targets, 1 catch for 0 yards. And that was pretty much all Terry and Arnold. So those 2 cornerbacks basically just took Darnold's weapons out of the game. Anzalone was all over Hockenson. Hockenson just didn't have a sniff. And Aaron Glenn was just sending pressures from all angles, all different kinds of blitzes, all different kind of coverages. And it was, it wasn't like a spectacular performance in that, Hutchinson got 5 sacks. It was just a really, really solid defensive beatdown.
Ash, it really feels like that all the way through, doesn't it? The defense, they were solid all the way through, but, the offense stuttered early on, a couple of bad picks, but then they really turned it on down the stretch.
Yeah, they really did. So, sort of the defense, to focus on the defense first, it's 100% right. The Jags, it's good. He points out the Jags game, because that actually comes to one of my stats, and that's the 2 teams that ran man coverage most against the Vikings are us, obviously yesterday, and the Jags. Darnold can't play against that, and can't play against the blitz. So we blitzed so much that entering this week, we were 16th in the NFL for covering cover 0. So just full on blitz. If you're covering someone, you're covering someone. If not, you're going for Darnold. So that's obviously right bang in the middle. After last night, we're now all the way up to 6th. We just kept blitzing, even if it was sending 5, sending 6. We just kept sending different people, and there was obviously there was one play that unfortunately went for a big conversion to them. We're going to later, where we sent Kirby on a free safety blitz from single height, and he nearly gets there. And Darnold made his one good play against the blitz and kind of replaced Kirby with the ball. But yeah, we were just trying to get Darnold off platform, and we must have flashed him back to his New York Jets days, because he was seeing ghosts out there again, which is just hilarious, and kind of predicted it as well when during the stream was like, oh yeah, it's going to get to a point where they're going to have to abandon the run, because Jones was doing some good things in the first half, and then as soon as they started getting into the hole, they went away from the run, which meant we could just tee off against the pass. And it made it even worse for Darnold, where, Jefferson made a couple of plays, but constantly just getting overthrown because of the pressure. Addison was just blanketed up by Arnold. Just a great game from Arnold. And it's kind of funny because obviously everyone's like, oh, yeah, you're going to try and double cover Jefferson. Well, Addison's going to burn you for 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. Then he did nothing. Hockenson... It just did nothing. Hockenson must have been spooked and breathed in the essence of Eric Ebron, who was in the building, because he was dropping everything. It was great. Off their offensive line, did some good stuff, but at the same time, especially I think it was their right guard, Blake Brendel, just had a really shit of a game against Levi and Zeris, which is great. They just could do nothing offense. They got a couple of big plays where there was a few missed holds in that, especially on the big, I think it was the big Cam Akers run. Naylor was holding Branch to high heaven, but that wasn't picked up. And then on our offense, starting with the run early, they were kind of on it, constantly inside. Van Ginkel was getting there, Pace was getting there, Cashman was getting there, but we just kept wearing on. And it got to the point where they just got too exhausted. And suddenly that's when the big plays come in. Craig, when he had to come in for a couple of drives, you'd get like a 1 yard run, 2 yard run, suddenly it'd be like 8 yard run where he just bounces outside at the perfect time and gets the stuff. It was a great running day. And then passing wise, yeah, Goff had a couple of rough interceptions. Should have maybe been called for intentional grounding, which we'll get onto in a bit. But he had a relatively good day. Wasn't his best game. Like, he's kind of ended that track now of where every week it was like, is this Goff's best game in the Lions jersey? This definitely wasn't. But he did just enough passing the ball to keep the chains moving, keep us going. And even his decision near the end, where it was quite obvious he was getting pressured, instead of throwing it away, he decides to run out for a 2-yard loss because it keeps the clock running. Like, and that second half, I think he only completed 3 passes. He was just on fire in that second half. And it comes to the play calling as well that Ben was doing with, as I put it in our Discord, I can share it out on the WhatsApp as well. There's a breakdown by Jeff Schwartz, who's obviously a famous offensive line in the league, and now he does the breakdowns. The Vikings like to do 6-1 looks against runs, and we just schemed it up perfectly where everyone was blocked. We knew what AVG and Grenard were doing, and we just kept running outside zone past them. And Gibbs scored 2 of his 3 touchdowns on those kind of runs. We had, like we predicted in the preview, they showed us certain things. We had the perfect answers for it, and it showed because, the Vikings scored the least amount of points on us in the divisional game this season. Even the Bears in both their games scored more points against us than the Vikings did. And this is supposed to be a great explosive offense that was going to worry us.
Just going back to Goff, Ash, I kind of agree with 95% of what you said, but I think Goff had a better game than people have maybe given him credit for, because so many quarterbacks have absolutely melted against Brian Flores, defensive looks, and Goff was so good at throwing under pressure. Goff was so good at throwing where he knew he was going to take a hit. And, he 2 picks, absolutely. But outside, and one of those was just like a kind of crazy, that long bomb he threw, and Williams was nowhere near. And he threw, obviously there was the screen pass that Van Ginkel almost picked off at the start of the fourth quarter. But overall, I thought Goff played really, really well. And he made his throws when he had to. He threw some lasers to St. Brown, Laporta. And like I said, just he knew he was getting hit, but he kept throwing. And I think it was kind of like an underrated game for Goff. I really thought he was like a major leader all the way through.
Yeah. So there was that fourth down to Jay where I could agree. For me, the reason I said it is for 2 plays. The one is where he still threw the screen to Gibbs, and it was a hospital pass. That's the kind of pass that Stafford threw to his tight end last year, and suddenly he's calling Kirby a dirty player for tackling correctly, but unfortunately injuring his Tyler Higbee. There was that, and then that first interception where it was basically the same, where he's under pressure. He tries to throw it to Craig, who's not aware that it's thrown to him. It gets batted up, and it's an interception. There was for 80% of the time against the Blitz, it was perfect. But there were those couple of times where he did panic a bit, tried to throw it to the running backs, and both times it ended in what I'd class as negative plays because you could have really hurt Gibbs, and obviously the other one was interception. So yeah, maybe I need to watch.
The thing, and this is where we talk about grit. Look at the contrast between the catches that J-Mo made a catch where he was going across the middle and he knew he was taking a hit. St. Brown makes 5 of those every game, but he didn't drop the ball. I think Tim Patrick took 1, Gibbs took a couple.
Yeah.
But on the other side, Hockenson, and we saw this when Hockenson was a Lion. If Hockenson thought he was going to take a hit, he'd drop the ball. And whenever Hockenson was targeted, either Anzalone or occasionally Campbell were literally milliseconds from him, and Hockenson knew it, and Hockenson kept dropping, whereas our guys held onto the ball, and that was a big differential.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, just to get back to Goff very briefly, just 2 cents on that. You said about it being an underrated game for him. It's one of those things, even in the 5 interception game he had earlier on in the year, the resilience he's built in himself, where he keeps going back to the well and keeps throwing the ball in spite of things not going his way. And he got hit 6 times in this game, which is quite high. The fact that he keeps going back to the well, he's not seeing ghosts, he's not trying to get out of pockets too quickly and all that sort of stuff. it's super impressive because we're not going to come up against a defense as good as this the rest of the season. I don't care who we're against. I don't think the Eagles scheme it up like the Vikings do, even if maybe the personnel up front is very slightly better, but the scheme isn't. So, combination of personnel and how they use it, this is the hardest it's going to get. And Goff just stood in there and took it, but he kept coming. And that never say die attitude, he's Dan Campbell on the field. And you wouldn't have thought that of him coming here, but he does. He's emblematic of Dan on the field for the team, and it flows through both of them. It's terrific. Many thanks to Dan Pask for subscribing at tier 1 for his 34th month. Says Happy New Year. What a great way to celebrate it. Hope you guys are great. Good to see Steve. So there we go. Thank you very much, and thank you to Tyler11 Lansky as well on Twitch for the follow. Any overall takes before we go into the little gritty bit of going through the play-by-play?
Maybe taking a running back at number 12 in the draft was a good idea after all. Thank you, Bears fans.
The fact that Minnesota fans are complaining that the refs gave us everything despite us being caught every single time we stopped them on a third down conversion. Defensive holding, illegal contact. And supposedly we got everything go our way.
Yeah, it does. It is quite nice to have the shoe on the other foot and be the team where those accusations are being levied at you. Because I'm not going to sit here and say that I thought the refs were in our favour or their favour. I saw plenty of calls that they missed for the Vikings, but I just think they were equally bad for both teams. And now that we're in the position where we're just the better team, when the ref decisions go against you and you're the worst team, it cuts especially deep. Because you're trying, man. Well, that's who we used to be, but we're not that anymore. And it's fucking great being on the other side.
Yeah.
I see what everyone else meant now. Which is really horrible to say, isn't it? Because that Cowboys game is still going to be etched into my memory. But you know what? If we were actually a better team, we'd have won that game. And it's a shit way of putting it, but I'm sure the Cowboys probably had a decision that they would have liked to have had against us, and I hate putting it that way. But when you look at who we are now, how can we say otherwise?
Absolutely.
All right. Number 1 seed playing. It seems to be slated for Saturday night, but if we are going to be facing the 4 or 5 seed, it looks like it's going to be Monday Night Football next weekend. So we will see how that comes out. I'm got everything crossed. It's going to be Saturday Night Football, and that we face one of the 6 or 7 seeds. But it's relying on either the Packers or Washington to cause an upset. I think the Commanders have a shot potentially against the Rams.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I don't think that. I really don't expect to see the Packers again. Well, I mean, the Eagles have a habit of choking in the playoffs, but I can't see them going to Philadelphia and getting a result. But I think, Baker Mayfield is always, a few seconds away from disaster. And even though he has played really, really well, I don't know whether the Bucks have hit their kind of ceiling in terms of getting to the wild card, and I think the Commanders are definitely a good matchup for them. So that's going to be a good game to watch. But I'd certainly like to play the Commanders rather than the Bucks again, as a repeat of last season.
Yeah, so it's Vikings going to the Rams.
Rams,
isn't it?
yeah.
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 And I don't want to play the Vikings or the Rams again. So
I wouldn't mind playing the Rams. I know that people have had enough of it, but they'd be coming to Detroit again, and we're just miles better than them.
Yeah, but then we have to listen to Kelly Stafford.
If that's the worst thing that happens, I'm okay with it, because it's an easier game.
I'd rather have the Rams again than the Bucks.
Yeah, I think I'd like to play the Commanders and then get Philly at home and just crush them.
So, just been asked for a reminder by Dan Pask on the date options. So, the way that I understand the rules is there's 3 slots: there's Saturday night, Sunday night, and Monday night for the divisional round. And for Super Wildcard weekends, there is Monday Night Football. The winner of Monday Night Football cannot play on Saturday night contractually. I believe because they think the turnaround is too short. The problem is that the Monday Night Football on the wildcard weekend is 4v5. Winner of 4v5, if 2 and 3 win, is the lowest seed and they go to the 1 seed. So although we are slated in all events to play on Saturday night, if we play the winner of 4v5, that can't be on Saturday night. That would then be slated for... No, maybe slated for Sunday or Monday. I'm not sure which.
Sunday. So it'll be. So I think it's. So I think it'll be like sort of the 2 prime time slots. So you have the afternoon one on Saturday, on both Saturday and Sunday, and then Saturday night football, Sunday night football. So they can play either for us. I'm going to say it in our time because it's easy in my head. Either 9:30 or 1:30 on Sunday.
Right. So that'd be 4:30 or 8:30 Eastern, which is what,
Yeah.
1:30 or 4:30 Pacific, I think. But yeah. So it's difficult. You have to look at who you think is going to win, and then that defines the time slots. But anyway, many thanks to everyone in the chat. If you've got any questions for us, then do at the channel and just let us know. We've got a few to address at some point, including actually, just very briefly, because this is a general one, and I know that Steve, you maybe don't want to go through the play-by-play. But Aaron Schreier asks on YouTube, was it the addition of Anzalone that big of a difference maker that the defense can be middle of the pack again? Or was this largely Darnold playing horribly? Or is it somewhere between those two things? Or are they related things? I think it's an interesting philosophical question. Steve, what do you think?
I mean, for me, like Anzalone is always greater than the sum of his parts, if that makes sense. You know, if you were to look at Anzalone on the basis of his like RAS scores, you know, he's a kind of like bang average linebacker, if that. But he doesn't play like that. He doesn't play like his scores. He doesn't play like his combine. And you kept seeing him in the game. Like the camera kept picking him up, just talking. He had his arm around Jack Campbell at one point. He was talking to Branch, I think, after Branch took a penalty. Like, he is just a communicator. And I think having his presence on the field makes such a difference. But also, he played so damn well. Like I said, he was all over Hawkinson. He was really, really good against the run. And he's just a force, like an absolute force. And imagine the lift in the locker room when, you know, you saw the scar on his arm from the surgery he'd had and how raw it still looked. And he's put his cast on and he's not made any excuses. He's just gone to war. And for me, it was massive him coming back.
What about you, Ash?
Yeah, I think it's between the two so much that Anzalone being back allowed us to have a game plan that then forced Darnold to play bad. So having him AA back there allows Glenn to trust his linebackers a lot more, which means he can do those cover zero blitzes because he knows if Anzalone has to cover Hawkinson, he's up to the job compared to, and I'm going to obviously dig out the guys who used to be here who'd have played well instead, but they're not Anzalone. If it was Ezekiel Turner next to Campbell, if it was Ben Neiman, if it was David Long, Quan Alexander, Glenn wouldn't have that trust in the guy next to Campbell. Campbell wouldn't have that trust in the guy next to him. So having AA back, having the green dot back, being a communicator, talking to all the players and that, being the QB of the defense as then calls him, definitely helped. But it also helps in so much it allows you to do the cover zero blitzes, the weird stunts and that we did, that then meant Darnold was constantly under pressure. It meant he was playing bad. He got in his own head. He was overthrowing his receivers like nobody's business. So it's kind of in that in between where one caused the other and then the other that could then cause Anzalone to play better. It's like a feedback loop of sorts.
Just want to give a shout out to Tyler11 Lansky on Twitch, first time chatter with, and it's all individual bits, so I have to count it. It's 14 bits. Many thanks, Tyler. I appreciate you very much. If you want to say hello or something for the bits, then please do put a comment in the chat and I'll shout it out. All right, we are going to go through the play-by-play. Steve, you going to stick around for a bit, or is that you done at this point?
I'm going to try and stick around till at least we get to half-time, and then it's my bedtime. I'm under strict doctor's orders.
Okay, sounds good. I have not seen that link pop up on YouTube, by the way, just to say. I see a comment saying, hit my fundraiser up, here's the link, all I've appreciated, but then there's no actual link in there.
Oh, it should be underneath.
Not
should be just underneath that.
Not for me.
In the live chat.
Nope. Can you repost it again?
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
We will go through all of the play-by-play then, and then talk about players of the game before talking about the rest of the NFL slate, because for a hairy little minute there, it looked like both teams in the NFC South were going to lose, and we got to talk about it for a little bit. It looked like no one wanted that 4 seed for a while, or even 3 seed, as it turned out to be. Oh my God. Someone get me a sleeping pill, please. Oh my God. This is my sleeping pill. Anyway, we move on. So Minnesota won the toss and deferred. That was their first mistake. Don't give us the ball at home.
Don't give us the ball.
You fools.
Ben Johnson likes the ball.
He does. Right. Kickoff goes for a touchback on 3rd and 5. Empty set. Gibbs runs a crusher and a mesh concept over the middle. And he's going to be tackled behind the line to gain. But he goes backwards and then does a little elaborate spin to get around the pursuer, who I think might have been Cashman. Just leaves him for dead. Before getting upfield for the first down. 1st and 10, Gibbs tries to carry outside but loses 3 on 3rd and 8 subsequently. Outside zone run, met in the backfield for a loss of 7 by Jonathan Grenard. So that made it 4th and 15, which obviously meant we couldn't go for it. Seemed a bit of a weird call to go for a run there on 3rd and long. Looked like they were trying to set up 4th and short around midfield to go for it, but didn't work. So we had to punt. To the Minnesota 8, returned by Powell to the 14. He slips on the return and touchdown by Hogan Hatton, who is jointly in the lead for tackles on special teams in the NFL this year, which is pretty damn good.
By long snappers.
Thank you. 1st down and 10 for the Vikings. Big hole up the middle for Jones, who takes the ball for 8 yards. Another 1st down and 10 later in the drive at the Vikings 42. Jones met in the backfield but breaks tackles to get 6. 2nd and 4, everyone but the centre. False start pushes him in back 5. And back-to-back incomplete passes leads to 4th down and long and leads to a punt back to the Lions. Big stand there, especially around midfield. Punts from there, 49 to our 8, and Raymond returns it to the 22. He has the lead, or he's a leader in the clubhouse for punt return yards in the NFL, despite being a significant amount of the season on injured reserve. So shame on everyone else for that. 2nd down and 6, easy throw to Sam Laporta for 7 against Van Ginkel. 2nd down and 10, subsequently Amon-Ra motion across the line into a post route behind JMO for a big completion downfield for 23 yards. On 1st down and 10, Goff steps up in the pocket to avoid pressure, throws at the feet of Craig Reynolds for an incompletion. 3rd down and 2, Reynolds then bounces inside zone outside for 3, but called back on for a hold by Zeitler. And then on 3rd and 12, a 5-inning catch by Patrick for 7 yards. On 4th and 5, Goff steps to the right to buy a bit more time to hit JMO on the crosser on 4th down and 5. As the Vikings bring a cover 0 blitz. Really good play by the Lions there. Metellus hit Goff on that play. 1st down and 10 at the Minnesota 25. Gibbs takes a counter to the house. Great blocking up front by the Lions. Offensive line and Brock Wright at fullback to spring free. And he's heading for the pylon and it's just too fast. PAT was good and Detroit leads 7-0. Getting towards the end of the first quarter now. Minnesota's 2nd possession trying to get back level. Bates with a banana kick on the line drive. Bounces in the landing zone. Brings out Minnesota there at 20. 1st and 10, Levi pressure against the right guard forces Darnold back. Sacked by Zadarius Smith for a loss of 17. Forces 2nd and 27. They get 9 of it back, but on 3rd and 18, a throw to a wide open Hockenson was too high. It would have been for a 1st down, but they do not complete. And on 4th and 18, punt to the Lions 31. Leaf doesn't get any return despite running about 15 yards east to west. And that was the end of the first quarter. Just to finish off this drive. 1st down and 10, false start on Sewell. 2nd and 12, running back slip screen to Gibbs, but just completely blown up by Van Ginkel. Tackles Gibbs straight in the ribs, visibly winded, looked like he was in real trouble, but of course he came back into the game, thankfully. On 3rd and 20, Goff then sacked for a loss of 11 by Grenard, who beat Laporta and spins around Decker to get to Goff. Incredible play by Grenard, I have to say, just on a dime managed to get around Decker after beating the chip as well. Brilliant, for them at least. Anyway, I'll stop there at just after the end of the first quarter. Lions up 7-0, and Steve, we didn't get out to the hottest start after, having a 3rd down we just complete by Gibbs' amazing play, but any other running back would have been cut short. And then another 3rd down that we can't get. Minnesota, though, get to midfield, but they're stopped short. We then take a long drive for a touchdown, but after only having a 4th down and 5 completion against the cover 0 blitz, not like that didn't work for us the rest of the game. And then they fail to do anything on offense again before we have a drive that just stalls out because of an awful throw by Goff and then a sack.
Yeah, and I mean that sack by Zadarius Smith was a really big moment early in the game, because it looked for a minute like Darnold was going to get away, and Zadarius was absolutely relentless, and he wasn't far off a safety. So that was a great moment, and I think as well, just both Gibbs and Reynolds, I thought, had really good games. We'll talk about Gibbs. So let me just talk about Reynolds quickly. Reynolds was really, really good at the patient run and letting the blocks develop. And, he wasn't charging for a gap. He was waiting to see how the O-line moved people. And he was just like, shadowing behind Saul or shadowing behind Ragnow. And then he was like exploding. And he played so well in terms of, he had so many kind of like 5-6 yard runs at a critical time, and also his pass protection. I think he brought something to the game, a bit of stability for Goff, where Gibbs was probably getting like blown past on a few occasions. So for me, Craig Reynolds had a great game, and again, all part of the kind of team performance.
First quarter.
Yeah, so that, like we both loved that play from Gibbs, and obviously to get the third down, like just like the face, it's like a sort of stiff arm spin move at the same time, and it works. And then I agree that we were kind of trying to set up a fourth and short, maybe go for it, and Grenard just makes a damn good play against it to force the punt. But yet then they kind of they have one good play with the 8-yard run, but then it just kind of falls apart from there. They obviously, the drive's a bit longer than a 3 and out, but it just kind of stalls back because we just had the right kind of coverage, and obviously the full start sets them back, and they can't get themselves out of the hole like we can. And then we get the touchdown on a damn good drive with, as the excellent blocking for the linebacker, the O-line and the tight ends against the linebackers. So it's one of those 6-1 fronts that I was talking about, where they've got their traditional like the sort of traditional guys down, and then Sully Van Ginkel and Grenard on the side, kind of acting like outside linebackers, waiting to shut off any outside zones that go their way. And we just block it perfectly. And Gibbs is able just to get in perfectly for it. The Bates banana kick, we've seen him kind of try it a couple of times. It hasn't worked early in the season. I think he tried it. I think it was against the Seahawks, and it was just short. And it obviously gets you that sort of penalty that gets the teams to the 40. But it worked here. Of course, the big announcement, the 20 into the 30, it's that extra 10 yards. And it meant that when we got that massive sack, they were really in a hole, and they kind of had to go conservative with their play calls, because what else can you do on 2nd and 27 and like your own 3-yard line? Like, you're really in the hole by that point, and it works. We then get the punts, and just stalls out by a couple of good plays by Andrew Van Ginkel and Grenard. Their edge rushers kind of seeing their team is in the hole and trying to step up and force something. Kind of like last week, where the offense was doing everything, we're just waiting for the defense to do something. And admittedly, for this first half, pretty much we were wanting the opposite. Like, the defense is doing stuff, we need the offense to do something. They tried to do something for the defense, and the offense just wouldn't keep up with them.
In the building now, the Brit with grit, Anthony Fitzpatrick is here. How you doing, man? Lions #1 seed.
Yeah, what a day for everyone. I heard there was a lesser spotted Steve Collins in the building, and I've got to have to drop by and say hi. I know the Lions are kicking ass, but if there's someone else who's kicking ass more than him, it's our Steve. So I hope you're good.
I'm good, man. I'm good. Great to be here. Great to be just in a position just to have a general gloat at the rest of the NFL.
And we're just talking about the end of the first quarter. Their Lions up 7-0, and Vikings had nothing going in that first quarter whatsoever. We were talking, Lions defense obviously had their way with the Vikings pretty much all day, but we hadn't really put ourselves in a bad spot on offense to this point. Our drives hadn't been great, but we were still punting the ball away, and they were having to make long drives. We only made it hard for ourselves later on. But at this point, the Gibbs touchdown had happened, and we got the ball back. I think I've actually gotten to the point where we've had the end of that drive after the first quarter, but 7-0, and it felt pretty damn good at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the start was a little cagey. We ran the ball a lot. We didn't really mix it up a great deal, and they sort of dealt with it early. But then when they opened the playbook out a bit, they looked a lot better. We looked a lot better. Sorry, and getting the score early helps. Like a lot of times we played Minnesota recently, we've got into a hole early, and then you kind of fall into their wheelhouse of having to chase them, and that's when they're really good. But the fact we were able to get in front, exert a bit of pressure on them, on their quarterback, and it showed. And as the course of the game went on, you were able to break them a bit more. So it was, and we made some mistakes early on, but we rectified them, and so getting the score really, really helped.
Yeah, so after the Lions had the Gibbs hospital pass for a loss and then the sack straight afterwards, we were back at our own 10. We punted to their 44, returned to midfield. And on this drive, they only had 50 yards to go. 2nd and 9, Darnold throws to Oliver on a quick cook, takes for 13. Illegal contact penalty on a Meeks declined. That would have hurt his grade, mind you, too. So the fact that his grade's so high, despite that, tells the story. 1st down and 10. Kirby nearly jumps the screen to Addison, and Meek makes a tackle for no gain to 2nd and 10. Darnold airs the ball out to Addison over the middle. Both Addison and Meek handsy on the play. 3rd and 10. Kirby comes off the free safety blitz. Darnold hits Jefferson on post at slot for 31 yards to Detroit 6. Did they miss a delay a game? Question mark. That's going to be something we talk about at the end of this, I think. 1st down and goal from the 6. Akers runs for 2. 2nd and goal, Darnold throws it away. 3rd and goal is an overthrow to Hawk. And 4th and goal is an overthrow to Jefferson for a turnover on downs. Huge stand by the Lions with 4 and goal to go plays. Detroit not content with making it hard for themselves, so after that, take over on their own 4. 2nd down and 5. Incomplete play action pass from Goff in the end zone out of a pace sack. Potentially should have been intentional grounding and a safety. 3rd and 5. Sam Laporte's a 5 and out, just gets the 1st down. Gibbs then runs and gets back to back. What the hell is CRE runs, man?
Craig Reynolds.
Thank you. 1st down and 10. CREY. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But anyway, never mind. Three are capitalized and 1 isn't. I didn't get that. 1st down and 10. Gibbs tries to throw the ball to Craig Reynolds, who's just come off a block, but the ball's batted into the air by Josh Metellus. Intercepted by Ivan Pace, who returns it to the Detroit 7. Really good heads-up play by the Vikings. Questionable play by Goff at best. So they're set up at the Detroit 7, having just had 4 and goal to go situations. 1st down and goal, Darnold almost picked by Meek in the end zone. It's actually a really good play by Jefferson to avoid the pick. 2nd down and goal, play action pass to Jefferson at the back of the end zone. Caught but out of bounds. 3rd down and goal, Darnold overthrows Jefferson on the end zone fade. He was wide open for that, but just missed him. Had to settle on 4th down then for the 25-yard field goal, which was good, but almost wide right. So 7-3 after 8 and goal plays in the space of about 2 minutes. Kickoff goes for a touchback.
Can I ask a question at this point? Like, if you're the Vikings, what about Aaron Jones at this point? Like, they kept throwing, giving it to Darnold to throw. Like, Aaron Jones, not as someone who I'm a great fan of, ex-Packer, but Aaron Jones has damaged us a lot. Aaron Jones has had a lot of success against us over the years. And, we've got a bit of a banged up D-line. So why the hell did they keep giving it to Darnold to throw? I don't understand. Were they just so confident that in Jefferson that he was going to beat the man coverage? But for me, I would have given Aaron Jones a go, and I think Aaron Jones would have scored a touchdown in one of those few attempts.
I do think it's poor play calling. Frankly, I do think that it shows a bit of a lack of imagination. I mean, if you ask me whether I think Aaron Jones is a better running back or Darnold and the weapons are better, I do think Darnold and the weapons are the better side of that team, despite how good Aaron Jones is. But you should mix it up. And that was the thing I liked about our 4th down and inches call when we went play action. Sometimes you've got to do the thing that keeps the other team off balance and keeps them guessing. You've got to play the chess match. And they didn't do that. They really just didn't play the chess match at all. And I do think maybe part of it was they were worried about Jones's injury and they were trying to kind of marshal his reps a little bit. But I don't know, Ant. What do you think?
What, in terms of not using him enough? I mean,
Or just in these and goal situations as well. They had one run which was by Akers for 2 at the very start of all of this, and then they went pass, 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 and then they went pass, 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 field goal.
yeah, this is because everyone talked about the game beforehand about the glaring weakness here was their receivers against our secondary, and I think they were so bought into that fact that their guys were going to get open at some point that logic dictated that eventually they'd get one. So just keep putting it in Darnold's hands and keep throwing it, because surely eventually one of our guys is going to bust coverage and they're going to have something on. But this is where this is where Campbell distances himself from others. KOC, I think, is a slave to what he's told to do. Everything will be telling him to throw the ball. Whereas, you do need to mix it up and give it an opportunity, because when you're just throwing it all the time, you make it easier on our defense. When you're showing nothing in there, you're not really giving us the hint that you're going to run it either. We can dedicate more resources to it. But for as bad as I thought their play calling was, I just thought our red zone defense was a lot better. And I thought we were incredibly good. I think, instead of really knocking them for it, we should praise our guys for what they did. Because they were probably right to throw it all those times. Because again, law of averages says Jefferson's gonna get free at some point. Hawk's gonna get free at some point. Addison's gonna get free at some point. But every time our guys did everything they needed to. I think there was like maybe one play that Donald really missed somebody, and that was it.
Jefferson. Yeah,
he had the one where he
had
nailed him. But apart from that, he got nothing. And the pass rush didn't give him a lot of time to be able to throw it. So I thought our guys did tremendous in the situation to negate that weakness.
Do you think it was a misstep, Ash?
Yeah, like I was saying, even from this point where we've got to with the ones after the pace interception, they just didn't run the ball. And I know, in that situation, teams usually do. We could probably crack down on it, but just going pass. We saw it earlier this year. There was another game where a team was like this. They had a couple of goal-to-go situations, and they just kept throwing the ball. Like, you should do it every so often to catch teams off guard. But in that 10-yard line, if you trust your offensive line against what is supposed to be a weakened Lions defense, you run the ball, especially with Jones, who has that history with us. Cam Bakers can also do it. And you've got CJ Ham as well. You've got one of the best fullbacks in the game. Use them, especially at this point. If Darnold's looking a bit shaken up because of our pressure, get the ball out of his hands, put in someone who you can trust more. And at this point, they just stuck with Darnold just to say, well, come on, get yourself out the hole, fix this for us, and it just wouldn't work.
Even if you spread it out, if you went with four receivers spread out, including Hawk, but not lined up as a tight end, in shotgun with Jones next to Darnold, and then you're just saying to Jones, go and beat one guy in front of you. The 5 offensive linemen will take their guys, and you just need to beat someone one-on-one. And then you make it super simple for them, and then Jones gets it or he doesn't. But that kind of feels like it would be a good way of doing it. And if one of your offensive linemen mauls someone, that gives Jones someone to run behind that you're not relying on. But that if that happens, it gives Jones an easy way to walk in. I don't really understand what they were doing there, but there was a lack of imagination. It was almost like they said, we don't believe our run game can get this done. It was lack of faith in their team. And also, I guess...
I think as well, it was like they were just, well, Darnold's been brilliant. This is like the Darnold Renaissance. Darnold's going to find a throw. But, Darnold didn't get better as the game went on. He got worse.
Yeah. But the thing is, I think he deserved the faith. I mean, the way he's been the last 6 weeks, he had a little bit of a wobble in the middle of the season. But before that and after that, he's been one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. I know we like to laugh about the fact that they were whispering about him as a dark horse MVP candidate, but I don't think there's any denying that he has been a top 5 quarterback this season. And that probably puts you in the fringe conversation for the award, much like Goff is probably in the fringe conversation for the awards. Goff has obviously had a better season, there's no doubt of that. But Donald's been a legitimately great quarterback. The fact that they showed faith in him is deserved, I think. He just didn't perform under pressure.
He's probably comeback player of the year.
We'll change the rules now, so it's only for people coming off injury.
Yeah, although the people who actually administer the vote have said that he is eligible for it because it comes under other circumstances. So although they've changed the rules, they've said he can still get the award.
I heard that he's still eligible because technically he's still got PTSD from the Jets.
Oh,
Just what I
man.
heard.
Yeah, he should hook up with someone who can give him some drugs. Anyone know in the New York area someone who can hook him up some drugs? Anyway. We're going to stop ragging on the Jets at any point in this show. I absolutely love it.
Well, we're not really ragging on the Jets, are we? Let's face it. We're just...
I mean, I will rag on the Jets for the fact that they just paid the absolute top of the market money to someone who didn't deserve it. And then all of his friends. So I will blame them for that. It's like saying, I don't blame the Browns for going after Watson. I don't like Watson. It's like, yeah, but he did spend 3 first-round picks on him, so you kind of got to blame him a bit. You know? Anyway. Maybe not apples to apples. I'm not saying that Rodgers raped anybody. I'm not saying that.
Well, I mean, it's quite hard to when you're in an isolation cave. Maybe he raped himself. I don't know. He was in there on his own.
Oh, it had nothing to do on his darkness retreat, but he managed to do it against his own will. Oh man, we should leave the darkness retreat in the past and just briefly talk about the end of this first half. So 7-3 Vikings at this point. Kickoff goes for touchback. Detroit have the ball first and 10. Patrick catches a pass over the middle, stumbles and touchdown for a gain of 8. Amon-Ra gets the first down on the next play. 3rd and 3. Craig Reynolds takes the inside zone, short of the line to gain. Campbell challenges it, but it's unsuccessful. Looked on the replay like they got there, but his knee went down before his forearm, only marginally, and that's why it was called short. 4th down and inches. Play action pass to Jameson Williams over the middle, incomplete. It was deflected at the line by Bullard. Turnover on downs there. Had Jamo caught it, he's about 50-50 to break it for a touchdown. I think there are people in coverage, but he's got the speed maybe to get away from him. Depends on the timing of it. Kind of hard to see. Anyway, Minnesota take over at their own 42. 2nd down and 8. Darnold flush from the pocket by Levi. Scrambles left, forced out of bounds by Jalen Maben for a gain of 2. 3rd down and 6. Hook by Naylor at the line to gain. Gets more after the catch before being tackled by Branch. And now at the 2-minute warning. 2nd down and 6. Jones runs for 8. Holding by Patrick O'Connor. Tacks on 5 at the end of the run. At the Detroit 18, 1st and 10, Jones runs for 1. 48 seconds to go. Pass to Jones for 4. Take first time out. 28 seconds to go. Incomplete to Jones. Darnold hit by Pascazzi through. 20 seconds left. They run out of downs. They take the 31-yard field goal, which is good. 7-6 ball game. Should be the end of the half. I was thinking, maybe we're going to kneel this out. We're going to come out to the 30 and just think one time out, 20 seconds. We'll say 1 point's a good enough thing. But Will Reichard has other ideas by shanking the kickoff out of bounds. So Detroit start at the 40. If you want to go for a NFL record field goal coming out to the 40, you need 10 yards. Get to midfield, you can try a 68-yarder. And we know that Bates probably has the leg for that. So with one time out in the pocket, it's a no-brainer to go for this. And Goff actually gets Amon-Ra St. Brown for 19 yards on the very first play. And he's pushed out of bounds to stop the clock at the Minnesota 41. So 15 seconds to go. And he takes 5 off the clock. He can go again. Goff passes to Leaf over the middle. What an underrated catch by Khalif Raymond. The only thing he did on offense, obviously he had the kick returns, punt returns. But those 11 yards gets us down to the Minnesota 30. Take the time out with 2 seconds left. And Bates is money from 42. No, that is not right. From 48 to get the Lions up by 4, 10-6 at the end of the first half. And Steve, that second quarter is just absolutely mad. I know we've talked about the and-goal situations already, but beyond that, we have that 4th down play which doesn't work. Would love to know what you think about that play call, because that was discussed again and again and again in our Discord chat. And then the Vikings again get down into the red zone, but just can't make it work. End up settling for another field goal, and then that should be the end of the half, but they screw it up, and we are clutch with 20 seconds to go.
Yeah, I mean, I am not someone who, I should not be second guessing Ben Johnson. I'm not qualified to have that conversation because we have to trust in Ben Johnson. All I would say is we have one of the best, if not the best, offensive line in the NFL, probably in the NFC. And you've got Jahmyr Gibbs, you've got Craig Reynolds, who's a real tank, and I think we were with fourth and one, fourth and two,
fourth and inches.
Just run the ball, just run the ball, and it just seemed like sometimes Ben Johnson tries to outsmart Ben Johnson, and that could have been one of those things. I was just thinking, just punch it in, and I think if we'd have got Montgomery on the field, that's exactly what would have happened, but I thought that was unnecessary showboating from Ben Johnson. But having said that, I was watching the game and I was just thinking, I couldn't imagine us going into the half leading. I thought the Vikings are going to score here, they're going to get hot. And for us to kind of, at one point I was thinking we're going to go into this maybe 13-10 down. And for us to limit them the way that we did was just absolute money. Absolute money from the defense. And you know how critical I've been of the defense for many, many years. And Aaron Glenn, I said at the start of the season, he has to really step up. But, he absolutely did. Because I think this was a turning point where we just kind of broke them mentally after, the red zone performance. I think they went away and they had a halftime talk that probably was a lot different than they were expecting. And I think that psychologically just gave us an edge for the rest of the game.
And that second quarter was almost as nuts as the first. I mean, again, Minnesota can't get it done even with the most advantageous of circumstances. And, we're gifting it to them a little bit, but they're just throwing it away consistently.
Yeah, you can just sum it up by saying the offense made a bunch of stupid plays and the defense bailed them out of it, which is pretty much what this was. Again, I'm like Steve. You're making this too complicated for yourself sometimes. Don't put the ball in the air when you're at fourth and inches. Just put it over. They didn't even have a man in the middle of the defensive line. You could have just walked that thing. You could have snapped it and walked it over. You're stupid doing something like that. And I get the play call was good, and if it had have gone, then it'd have gone to the house. But at the same point, it's just don't take any unnecessary risks, especially when you've got a lot on the line like that. Keep the ball, keep your defense off the field, just play smart ball. And they didn't. And it was infuriating because the defense was doing its job time and time again. Like I said, when they got the turnovers, you're thinking, oh God, here we go. It's going to be 7. And then they get down into the red zone quickly, and then they make a stand, and you're like, right, they've put a lot of work in to get that back. And then we get the ball back, and then we do something stupid again, and it was really annoying because they were there to be put away early, and it could have been a lot easier than it was. I mean, it was easy in the end, but this was just the sort of stuff we're not going to be able to do in a Super Bowl. And maybe it's good we get it out the system now and we get it on tape, and they just learn to rein it in a little bit. But yeah, it was silly. But give kudos to Minnesota's defense as well. It made the stops when it needed to. They were batting passes down at the line for fun. Pace again making plays. He's such a pain in the arse at this point. That's two this year that he's got on his turnovers. But yeah, the main story is here just the defense's ability to hold out. You're on 2 turnovers and you're still winning 7-6. That's a good position to be in. And then a mistake from them at the end, and you punish that mistake. And honestly, yeah, like Steve said, it probably is going to deflate them a bit. They've worked really hard in the half. They've worked their way back to a point, and then just to give us an easy 3 points right before the half like that will not have sat well with them. And at least it gives you something going into the half. But yeah, the second quarter can be called infuriating, and I think that's an apt adjective for them.
Given we've talked a lot about this, Ash, with the other guys there, just briefly on that 4th down decision, what's your thoughts on that now?
Yeah, I agree. Play call, if it works, it made him look like a genius, but as I said to you, I think at halftime yesterday, I think Ben at this point was a bit too much in his own head with his sort of trying to one up Flores, who obviously was the guy that fired him from being wide receiver coach in Miami. So he's kind of a bit too much of the I'm going to be the smartest man in the room. Just run the ball, nice and simple. A lot higher probability of success, and we could have continued that drive on. But at the same time, in the grand scheme of things, didn't really affect the outcome of the game. So it kind of could be forgiven, but not forgotten about, because this is obviously another sort of instance of Ben trying to be too cute, too clever, and it not really working out for us.
Well, I'm now the only remaining one who really likes the play call. That's okay. That's fine. There's a smidge of it being the cleverest person in the room, but I just think that when it comes to the long-term aspects of putting what your team is willing to do on tape, if the other team doesn't respect the fact that you might pass out of this situation, they're not going to respect the pass. They're just going to go all in on the run. And that doesn't just apply to this game, but it applies to every subsequent game the Lions play this year. You know, if they think that you might go play action, deep crosser, deep post here, so deep corner, whatever, then, you know, they're just going to crash down with 11 men on the run. And why not? And we've seen it before where you're on 4th and inches and you get 2 yards, hit 2 yards deep in the backfield for a loss and you've turned it over that way. That happens all the time in the NFL. So I think you have to show you're willing to do this. The only thing that I would criticise is that you allowed them to bat the ball by throwing over the defensive line. And Goff is tall, but he's not like Herbert tall. And he didn't put enough loft on that ball. He tried to zip it. It made it enough of a question mark that it can be batted. If you're going to run that play, I'd love to see JMO flatten that route out a bit, getting outside of the defensive line so that you're not throwing over anybody. Because then you're taking all of the risk that it's not Goff not making the play, but it's a good play by the defense. If that happens, it's money. I think if you're throwing outside of the line, you're going to convert there. So I kind of like the decision, go for it, but maybe the play design to just slightly adjust it so that you're not risking that bad ball. But whatever, minor gripe in that. Obviously, 78% of the time you should be running that, but I don't hate the fact that they went for it. Anyway, let's move on to the second half. Minnesota start with the ball, down only 4, despite everything. Maybe they should have been up, but still very much in this game. Touchback on the kickoff, 3rd and 8. Great PBU by Amik on Jefferson to save the first down. There's a illegal contact penalty on Branch, gives Minnesota a new set of downs. 2nd down and 10, a 58-yard inside zone run by Cam Akers. Brilliant touchdown saving tackle by Kirby, who managed to basically hold on to him by holding his hand. I mean, he got it done. 1st down and goal from that spot, and Akers runs for 1. 2nd down and goal, Jones in the flat for 3. 3rd down and goal from the 2-3 yard line. Darnold flushed from the pocket by Pascal, and Levi throws the ball away. 4th down and goal. They go for it again, and a great PBU by Terry and Arnold against Jordan Addison for a turnover on downs at the Detroit 2. Lions take over from there. Very first play, Goff with a play action deep throw over the middle towards JMO on a post, but just JMO loses the flight of the ball. He can't find it again, so slows down. And by the time Harrison Smith intercepts it at the Minnesota 46, JMO's about 5 yards away from it. I do think if JMO's at full speed and he can see it coming, he's probably going to be at the right spot, but as it is and as it went, it kind of just looks like a really bad throw by Goff. I'm not convinced that it is, although Smith's in the right position for it. Even if JMO does run that route, you're looking at a 50-50 ball at best. Weird play. So, after surviving another 4 and goal downs, it's Minnesota with the ball at their 46. 1st down and 10, Jones run outside for 7. Arnold hurt on the play. We talked about that before with Al-Qadim Mohammed tripping and falling on his ankle, bending it the wrong way. 2nd down and 3, screen to Jones for 10. 1st down and 10, Darnold pressured, throws the ball, which is nearly picked by Zarius Smith. Intentional grounding called as a throwaway with no intended receiver in the area, and it doesn't reach the line of scrimmage even though he's out of the pocket. 2nd down and 23, pass to Jefferson for 17. Looked like he pushed off a little bit on Amik, or Amik thought so anyway, but it was a bit weak in my opinion. And then 3rd down and 6, Darnold nearly picked as if he tries to make a play, which knocks the ball away from Amik, who was in a much better position to actually catch it. Resulted in a 51-yard field goal attempt by Rijkaard, which was good. So 10-9 ball game. Worth noting that if they'd taken a field goal on the last 4 and goal bits, they would have been up here by 2. Just something to think about, Kevin. Anyway, sorry. I really need sleep, guys. Detroit, 8th possession of the game for them. Kickoff goes for a touchback. 2nd down and 1. Gibbs met at the line of scrimmage, but pushed forward by Penne to convert for a new set of downs. 1st down and 10 later in the drive. Screen to JMO, blown up by Murphy for a loss of 5. Really impressive play by Byron Murphy there. False start on Decker makes it 2nd and 19. But then Sam Laporta comes back with a 17-yard catch against a double-A gap blitz. Goff just standing in there, taking the hit, and a great catch by Sam Laporta. 3rd down and 2. Amon-Ra Brown catch for 12 over the middle. Lions then get into a 4th down and 2 later in the drive, and Gibbs just a little kind of in the shotgun, little 2-step out, and then just goes up towards the posts and leaves Van Ginkel in the dust for a 10-yard receiving touchdown. P80's good, and suddenly the Lions are up by 8. Final drive of the third.
I think it was a great block by was it Sam Laporta with the block. Really, really good.
Really impressive, yeah. Just to finish off this one, because a very quick one. Minnesota's 8th drive finishes off the 3rd quarter. Touchback, 2nd and 7. Donald scrambles right, completes to Naylor for 27, holding on if he declined. 2nd and 7, Donald throws to Oliver, tackled low by Iffy short of the first down, and 3rd and 4 is incomplete towards Hock. Another 51-yard attempt is wide right, and suddenly the Lions have the ball in good field position, up 8, and the 3rd quarter ends basically the very next play. Ant, to come to you first this time. While the first half was a bit all over the place and a bit to and fro, and the defense bailing us out, and it's only a 4-point game, but they've got the ball, suddenly the Lions have started to pull away. They've had 4 more and goal situations, no good. 2 field goal attempts, 1 good, 1 bad. In the mix of it, we score a touchdown. That Gibbs touchdown's absolutely beautiful. And then some really good plays by the Lions defense. I mean, maybe should have had a pick or 2 here or there, but they were just making PBUs and quarterback hits out of nowhere.
Yeah, they started pretty slow. I mean, the defense, it's great when they get the ball because, you're so close. To get the turnover on downs, especially at your own 2, is a big boost for you. But then Jared Goff had such a good game, but he made a couple of really stupid decisions in this game, and that throw was horrendous from him. Why the hell are you throwing it into? You've got a set safety down there. Why are you throwing it in when it's in double coverage? I don't know. And you're giving them the ball back, and when your defense has just been out there, it's got a big stop, it's made the plays, you're just giving them the ball straight back on a boneheaded play, then you're starting to fear. They put together another drive. Thankfully, you're able to keep it down to a field goal. And I think then this team just, it can play bad for a few quarters, or it can play not as two cohesive units for a long time. And then it'll just snap to life. Something will happen. And then they say, yeah, it does come together for us eventually when they bring it down to a point game. And it's, Laporta's catch probably was it. Like the 17-yarder one, that's the one that gets you going. Throwing all these stupid screen passes in there that just weren't working. You catch them a bit downfield, you lighten the box up a bit, and then you go and Gibbs, who just had the greatest game ever, the 4th and 2, it's ballsy. I say the guy with the biggest balls wins the biggest prizes in these games, and for Dan to go for it, because he could have easily just gone for 3, just to get the lead a little bit more comfortable, but you're not going to put them away with just field goals, and, it's a great play call. Gibbs gets in, and then from there, it just seems to be, for us, we came to life. Obviously, the field goal miss helps from them, and then you come back out, you score again, you put the pressure on, and the playbook just seemed to really open up from that point. It just went from being very vanilla to all of a sudden, it just worked. I don't know what it is, but this team's just got an ability to forget when it's not been really good and switch it back on. But yeah, it was a bad start to it. The defense was great all the way through, but then the offense come to life, and yeah, it was really good. But Gibbs is just something special. And, this was a great, the only positive with Monty being out is it's allowing him to become a big star in his own right. He's taken on a lot more responsibility, and you've seen that he now has the ability to take the game by a scruff of its neck and put it to bed. So good for us, he came to life.
Many thanks to Slowtown Trev for the $10 super chat. Says support for our Lions fans across the pond. Blessing to you and yours. Thank you very much, Trev. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Steve, 3rd quarter. Lions start pulling away, but not after surviving more and goals to go.
Yeah, it was just attritional. you know, I mean, like this really, by this point, this really just felt like, you know, like a divisional game, a playoff game, rather than a, you know, regular season game. But there was just so much on the line. You could see, you know, it really was going to be a game of inches, and some of the tackling was really last gasp on both sides, and just fine margins. But you know, it's kind of what we've seen all year, and like maybe after the Buffalo Bills game, I just kind of lost a little bit of faith, just because the Bills were so good, and we looked like we were kind of like, you know, chasing shadows for a lot of that game. But you know, we shouldn't doubt like Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn, because you know they've shown time and time again that they can just get the players up to perform in these pressure situations. And you know, as Ant said, Goff made a couple of money throws at this point. You know, Gibbs just was just such a differential all night. And then all of a sudden, St. Brown's been quiet, but St. Brown will take a catch. Craig Reynolds will run for 7-8 yards. And, you know, you always had the feeling that red zone defense was going to kind of be our like shield. So, yeah, like at this point, I kind of knew we were going to win. Like I'd been so doubtful, and even up till sort of just before half time, but at this point I'm like really confident.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I even said to you at the start of the stream, it was like, oh, how do you think this goes? Like, if it's a kind of a traditional slot kind of game, we've got such a good chance because we'll be able to control the clock with our running, and that if it turns into a shootout, then yeah, maybe Minnesota have a better chance because their weapons against our secondary is a bit of a mismatch in favor of them. And yeah, during this third quarter, it kind of come true. So the fact that we've got, obviously, again, the goal line stands, they were a bit better with their play calling on it, obviously running it, the passes out to the running backs. And then the third one, Donald makes a good decision. Instead of sort of trying to eat the sack, he throws it away, lives another down. And it's just a great PBU by TA, which is actually now he's now tweeted out a clip of it as like a sort of hype video for the post game, which is great. Yeah, and then just the interception, like, yeah, JMO just probably lose the ball. It looks worse. It looks worse for Goff than it was. It was like the ones again he had against the Texans where just JMO just rung the wrong route and it makes Goff look bad. But in reality, it's kind of a mix of the two where Goff probably feathers the ball a bit too much. JMO's slowed up and it's just a mix of bad things. But even then, holding them to a 51-yard field goal from that isn't exactly the worst outcome. Like, obviously, you could have given a touchdown there and suddenly they're in front. The onus is now on us. The fact that the defense were able to lock down and kind of keep the lead there, so then we can get that sort of touchdown ourselves on the next drive with just a great play from Gibbs with the skinny Texas route, not as wide as you usually run it, but he's just trying to see that Van Ginkel's come in, just goes on his inside. Van Ginkel's literally left grasping the air, and Gibbs is clear and easy in for the touchdown. Like, such a good route from him, and the awareness of him to sort of cut that route short to get himself in the best position was great awareness from him. And even then, when they get a big, massive play with Jalen Naylor, it doesn't work out for them because, again, 51-yard field goal, not exactly the best position for them. And this time, it goes wide right, and it's not even close. It just literally just shanks the kick, and it's horrific for them. So they've gone from really having a chance to be in the game at this point, the start of the third quarter, where it's very close. They still got a chance to suddenly now all the momentum's gone from them. They need a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to even draw it, to tie it up. And considering how they've been in goal-to-go situations, do they trust themselves to go for two? Probably not. So the onus is really on them now in the fourth quarter to kind of have to come out, outscore us by 2 touchdowns, get the PATs to even win the game.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
And when you got Justin Jefferson on the field, every time they kick a field goal feels like a massive win for us. So when they kick a field goal and miss it, it almost felt like 7 points to us. It just was, massive, and like a huge momentum shift in the game.
It was a gut punch, and if you wanted to stick the knife in, first play or second play out of the fourth quarter was even worse for them, I think. So Lions up by 8 with the ball. Play action screen to Gibbs for 14 was the last play before the end of the third quarter. And then Play action cross a short to Sam Laporta, spin out of a tackle by Pace. First down and 10. Van Ginkel drops the pick 6 chance on the tunnel screen to Amon-Ra St. Brown. You score there, get 2-point conversion. Yes, we have the ball, but it's a tie ball game, and it wasn't a hard pick, and you do have the entire field to run into. He's not the guy with the greatest top speed in the world. Maybe you catch him, but I don't think so. I think it's going. So that felt like, with the gut punch of missing the field goal, that was like start right in the gravestone, like they're dead. And the Lions really put them to the sword then, This ends with a Gibbs outside zone run for 13 for the touchdown. Minnesota in their next one, they throw out a sack by Levi. AA bails him out with a holding call. It's probably why his PFF grade is not so great because he got a penalty. Second down and 9. PBU by Branch against Hulk. Third down and 9, sacked by Al-Qadim Mohammed. And they have to punt, which is just awful when they're down 15 at this point. You don't want to be punting at all now. You're in fourth down territory as long as you have a reasonable down and distance, I think.
It was great to when Mohammed got that sack, Hutch was going nuts on the touchline. Hutch was going absolutely nuts. And you could see on Hutch's face, he thought that was like, a real nail in the coffin of the Vikings because he looked absolutely elated.
Yeah, it was terrific. The Lions' next drive had a Gibbs inside zone run for 47, a fourth down and 2 neutral zone infraction by Smith. We drew them offside inside their own 10, and then Gibbs runs it in for a 4-yard touchdown, pushed over the line by Laporta on the second wave, 31-9 after the PAT. Minnesota are all but gone now. They still keep coming. It ends with a turnover on downs after Campbell challenges a ruling of a completed pass, which looked for all the world like it was a completion on tape, and I still somewhat believe it was a completion, but it was reversed on review. Another few maybe missed delay of games. And then, so they turn it over on downs. Lions kill some time. OPI by Wright brings it back. We end up turning over on downs ourselves after we run it on 4th and 8 just because. It's literally just we don't need the field goal. Whatever. And then they kneel it out in the ultimate display of the white flag. They knelt down to take a loss. How beautiful is that? And many thanks to Poole's virtual pub quiz on YouTube with a £10 super chat. Says, go Lions. Excited for what happens over the next few weeks, but going to enjoy the ride. I'm heading to New Orleans for the big game, so even more excited. Well done, ROTL, for cheering on the fan base. Thanks, Poole. That's much appreciated, and I hope you have an amazing trip out for the Super Bowl. Steve, I know that you're limited in time, so I wondered if you just wanted to give some thoughts on the fourth quarter and then maybe give one of your players of the game.
Yeah, I mean, just I think by this point you could just see that the Vikings, they could just feel it slipping away, and there was never any doubt, I don't think, in that fourth quarter that we were going to win the game, and it just felt like, we were just, it was like dagger after dagger going in. And you could, it was almost as though, I don't know what you guys thought, but it looked like the players almost kind of like relaxed and enjoyed the last like kind of 5 or 10 minutes because they knew the division was ours, and the were absolutely chewing clock. And it was just such a good moment because I think, in our fandom, we've not seen much Lions success, and last year was like an amazing year for like all of us. And then after what's happened this year, it kind of felt it was destiny that we were going to be like the first team to win like 14 games and not win the division and end up in the wild card. It just kind of felt that was going to be like a shitty end to the season, because there was just so much riding on this game. But fair play to Dan Campbell for getting them motivated, and for the coordinators to doing their jobs, and the players, like there were a couple of mistakes that players made, but any player that made a mistake more than made up for it in terms of how they kind of came back, and how they kind of reacted. No one made a mistake and then hid and slunk to the bench, never to be seen again. Everyone was back in the game. And the play, like when we had a penalty call and we gave a first down. We then made a stop on the next set of downs, and it was kind of like that all the way through. And the red zone performance. So for me, it was just a massive Lions statement win over our biggest rivals in the North, statement win over probably the second or third best team in the NFC, and someone who's going to be, the Vikings could beat anyone else in the NFC on their day. I think they're one of the few teams that could take out the Eagles at Philly. And yeah, we made their quarterback, who was having an amazing comeback season. We kind of took his soul, because we just played so well. We gave him nothing, and he ended up absolutely shook. And we took away the best receiver probably in the NFC. I still think maybe Jamar Chase is the best receiver in the NFL, but he's the best receiver in the NFC probably. Very close. Second is St. Brown, but Jefferson's just so talented, and he can do anything. And we just took the game away from him. And so for me, Gibbs was obviously a star, but I'm going to give the game ball to Amit Robertson from me, because he just neutralized Jefferson. And when you think Robertson was our CB3-4 at the start of the season, and Carlton Davis has played really, really well, but has obviously gone on IR with a broken jaw. Terry and Arnold has been brilliant at times, but frustrating with the penalties. And then Robertson's just come out of nowhere and just become a massive star. And he buried Jefferson. He buried him today. And for me, that was one of the keys to victory for us. And this wasn't a game where there was going to be one key to victory. We needed 2 or 3 different things to happen. And Anzalone was brilliant. And Goff was good and didn't make too many mistakes and kept throwing. And our O-line was pretty good. And Gibbs was obviously brilliant. But yeah, Amit Robertson for me gets the game ball.
Yeah, he was absolutely terrific. And fourth quarter and a game ball for you? Or Steve, was that your cue to?
No, I'm going to just I'll listen to you guys' game balls.
Cool.
So yeah, the game really changed in a couple of plays, didn't it? Van Ginkel should have housed that screen pass. That should have been them back in the game. That could have been it wide open. He drops it. A couple of plays later, Gibbs is in. Game's over. Fine margins. Who can win those 6-7 plays in a game, the important ones that ultimately decide its fate. And thankfully for us, it was us. But again, they were clearly diagnosing those. They were blowing them up. I don't know why we were going to them so often. Again, it was just poor ass play calling, and that needs to stop, because someone will punish us for that one day. But when that third touchdown went in, it was game over. And for them to come out and you to immediately make them punt, you get the sack to put them well behind the sticks, and that just kind of breaks any resistance left, because really you've got to score right away and score quickly with the clock coming down to keep that game competitive. And the fact that you've got to make them punt it, that's game over from there. And as Steve mentioned, it's just the war of attrition was over by then. You could tell they'd just lost it. There was some tired tackles. Gibbs obviously breaks off the big run, which is not defended well, which just really seals it, because it just allows us to bleed so much clock out. So it was a very professional performance to end it off. I say a few scares along the way, a few little bits of luck, but sometimes if you're going to go win a Super Bowl, you need a little bit of luck and you need a couple of plays to bounce your way. So but in the end, they just saw it out very comfortably, and no cardiac cats, and we'll always be appreciative for that. And yeah, overall, you look at the end of the game, and you have to say it's very, very satisfying the way they played, given the amount of pressure that we were under. They looked like the better team. Sorry, we looked like the better team. We are the better team, and we sort of let them know who was boss. So, it was a great performance in terms of a game ball. I mean, for me, there's only one guy it goes to, and that's Alex. Never thought I'd say this one, once upon a time, but when you talk about players that you might miss from this team if they're out, like his value is worth more than Hutch. And I say that not lightly, that we've not missed Hutch as much as we've missed Alex Anzalone. And that was very, very evident in this game. You know,
We
the
have
leaders,
mishutch, but we've just adapted so
we've
well.
adapted, but we've not
had
got
to change.
the amount that Alex brings, though. Like Hutch is the pass rush, which is great, and Hutch brings the juice up front, but Alex brings so much more than just being a linebacker. The organization was there. You know, the discipline was there. He leads by example. It's allowed Jack to go back to doing what he's good at as well. You know, Jack Campbell looked great in there with him. And for him to come back off that injury and play all but one snap when he should be on a snap count, like that's a captain there. That's your green dot. That's what been the green dot is. That's been the guy who's got to set the example for the rest of your defense. And they very, very clearly fed off that. And him and Jack neutralized that interior of the field. So no easy gains to TJ. Not allowing anything easy for Darnold to settle on. Darnold was never allowed to settle. He was never allowed to get off a load of easy passes to get himself in rhythm because those guys in the middle locked up his easy reads. And yeah, you look at it now, outside of Goff, he's probably the one who causes the biggest impact to the team if you lose him. So, you know, that states how important he is. And for him to come back and put in that performance, yeah, he's the game ball for me, quite clearly, even though Jameer got 4.
The difference in the team was palpable, and he is the leader of the team on defense. He's the talisman. 100% agree. We're just such a different team when he's not in it. Ash, fourth quarter on a game ball?
Yeah, so that Gibbs, that sort of 3-4 play turnaround from AVG dropping what would have been his 3rd pick 6 of the year, because he did very similar against a team in London, which obviously got him massive plaudits and people saying, oh, he's defensive player of the year, while Hutch was on a tear. Drops it 3 plays later. Gibbs takes that score, just running it in. I think this is the one that I called where I literally just was saying to Matt, like, run it left. And then they did, and it was just like, yes, I've actually got one right for once. I keep doing this. I predict the play, and it's not it. For once, I actually get it right. But that was just the nail in the coffin, because then, they're really in a hole. They have to score quickly. But at that point, we've got it to about 10 minutes left on the clock. So they needed at least 2 drives where they scored, and we were just going to try and run the clock down, and it worked to the point where on that sort of 10th drive, like our last proper one, just before we score, like on that sort of downs, Goff's getting pressure instead of throwing it away. He runs the ball for a loss, but because it keeps the clock running. At that point, they were fighting us and the clock, and so doing that, instead of throwing it away, living to stay another down, stopping the clock, instead he takes the kind of losses, like, actually, no, the clock's more important here than my rushing stats. And it worked. And then obviously the next a couple of plays later is the neutral zone infraction from Smith. Like, of all the players to get on like a fake cadence, is the guy who's gone up against Aaron Rodgers, who's supposedly the king of the fake cadence. And we get him. He's the one that kind of really puts the nail in the coffin of his team. The veteran leader, the oldest starting defensive back in the league, the current active leader in interceptions in the league. He's the one that puts that final nail in the coffin. And not only for the team, because in that game, but also in Kevin O'Connell's Coach of the Year projections, because how the hell can you give it to him after what we've done to them this year?
Yeah.
And then at that point, then, it was nice and easy. In the game ball, I'm going to go for someone on offense, but it's actually not someone, well, I'm probably stealing this a bit from Matt, because he's the one that points it out, especially on the coverage. But Brock Wright, in that fullback, he's playing fullback role in all 3 of Gibbs' touchdowns, and his kind of blocking, especially on the first and the third one, where he's the one that comes up and gets Cashman. It was great. And then him falling on the ball as well. So on the end of the massive Gibbs run, he kind of fumbles the ball and Brock's on it instantly. He stops the Vikings getting a chance there to get another turnover. So while PFF didn't exactly love him, Brocky did really well.
Yeah, it really stood out to me that Gibbs's touchdowns were often coming out of I formation with Brock at fullback. It just seemed to be a thing that they'd identified against the Vikings that was going to work. I'm not going to go through the fourth quarter again. We've done it 3 times already, but we stuck the nail in the coffin, and we had 10 minutes of bliss in a game which was 30 minutes of shit. This game is still in the balance when it maybe shouldn't have been. My game ball is going to go to a player that I've been banging the drum for all year as someone who's been unnecessarily ragged on, despite being a first-round starting cornerback rookie, being asked to play the most man coverage of anyone in the NFL. And you know what? It's going to stand him in great stead for future years because he's been put to the fire and just said, good luck. And he's been terrific, I think, in bad circumstances where his technique is not polished. And through the season, the gains he's made has been palpable to the point where this was easily his best game as a Lion, but it was easily his best game as a Lion against maybe the hardest offense he's going to have to play because, okay, fine, we'll just man you up against Jordan Addison. But it's Jordan Addison who's had one of the best wide receiver seasons in some time. I know he's got Jefferson on the other side, so he's always probably getting the slightly easier guys to go up against, but he's legitimately been terrific. And Arnold goes out there and he could... Jeffer could have folded under what he has had to suffer. It's been exactly the same in terms of what Lions fans have thrown at him for this season. For me, he should be in the Defensive Rookie of the Year candidates because you take away the DPIs, and he's had loads of PBUs. The technique he's been showing has been fantastic. He's been good in run fits. Like, he's one exception allowed where he didn't crash down and he should have done. But aside from that, in the run fits, he's been terrific. Like, I think he's been amazing. And
read out Jordan Addison's stats. Read out Jordan Addison's stat line because that says it all.
Yeah. You said, what is it? One reception on 6 targets for 0 yards. It's really, really impressive. And Addison on the season has 875 yards and 9 touchdowns. I mean, he's been really, really good. His last 4 games, he was 8 of 12 for 133 and a hat trick, 7 of 9 for 63, 5 of 8 for 35 and a touchdown, 6 of 8 for 69 and a touchdown. So while he hasn't gone over 100 yards in the last 3 games prior to this, he scored 2 touchdowns in the last 2 games and he had a hat trick 4 games ago against the Falcons. Like, it's been a great season for him. So Arnold deserves so much more love than what he's had. All right. That is basically that for the game review. So if you guys have any other... Well, I'll go to Steve, just if you have any other lasting thoughts about this game before we move our attention to the rest of the slate.
Yeah, I'm going to get going because I really need my beauty sleep. But just want to say, first of all, this was an amazing performance, amazing game. So much love for the Lions organisation in terms of how they've gritted it out to the end, and they've never thought that we've got the NFC North, in the bag. They've just made sure they kept the players sharp, and there's been absolutely zero complacency, and that's all you can expect from like a coaching team. So massive shout out to the Lions coaches, the players, and how they've performed on an individual basis, and they've won all their battles. Just fantastic. The crowd at Ford Field, I'm pretty sure that we're good for 3-4 start penalties against the Vikings, I would say. And yeah, just for me personally, like as a lot of you know, like I've had a fucking terrible year really since we lost to the 49ers was the start of it, when I started feeling really ill and really ill during the draft, and I got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in May. And like, having cancer is fucking shit, and you guys have just been all season, like, if I'm not on the podcast, I'm like listening on YouTube, sometimes like I'm in bed and I'm reading all the comments, and sometimes I get involved and interact a bit, and sometimes I'm just kind of like sleepy, and I'm just quite content to just like just be there as a passenger and listen to you guys talk and all the guys in the chat. So I just want to say big thanks to you guys, because you've really kept me going through some tough times. And this season we've got another 4 or 5 weeks, and I'm just going to be there all the time. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm a third of my way through treatment, or I'm like a stats guy, like Ant. So I'm 34% of the way through my treatment in 2 weeks' time, and I'm going to be finished in May 2026. And you guys are playing a massive part in keeping me going because it's tough. It's really, really tough from a motivation point of view, and waking up every morning and feeling like you're 172 years old. So yeah, big thank you to all the guys, all the Royal Lions guys, everyone in the chat. Lots of love. Hit me up on the fundraiser. I've posted it. It's to Maggies, who are a charity, who are helping me out mentally in terms of therapy, and also with lots of medical advice. And they're a free charity to anyone with cancer or who have got relatives affected by cancer or family affected by cancer. So hit them up with some cash because it's really worth it. And peace and love to all you guys.
Cheers, Steve-O. Great to see you, man.
Okay. Take care, guys.
See you
Take
soon.
care, Steve.
Yes.
Oh, man. If anyone ever needs the link to Steve's fundraiser, I have it in my history. I can always go and find that. So if you're ever feeling like you want to donate to that cause, then just say so in the chat. I'll be able to find that when we get through all of this. They've been a massive help, I know, to him. So please do get involved with that. That'd be great. All right. Do you guys want to have any further comments on Lions Vikings before we talk about the rest of the slate? Because actually, it was a bit more fun than I thought it was going to be. All right. Crack on with the rest of the slate then. So we came into this with the majority of the playoffs locked up. We obviously had the question on the NFC South and who was going to clinch that between the Falcons and the Bucks, and then there was the question of could Denver get the win against Kansas City and eliminate the Bengals and the Dolphins, which of course they did in spectacular fashion. But let's just go through all the games as we normally do, and we start with the early Saturday game, Browns at the Ravens, and the Ravens just twonked the Browns 35-10. Lamar was fairly unspectacular, but Ash Bailey Zappi is, and despite what he's done to us in the past, I'm not sure he's an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, unfortunately so. Like, I know obviously Western Kentucky's he was in a great system, wasn't he? He could pass for 5,000 yards and no one could I, but in the NFL, unfortunately, it's a bit different. And it just, for him being thrown in against this Ravens defense, which to start the year was very shocking, but has kind of picked it up in recent weeks, was a kind of trial by fire, especially since, you're just in a hole. The fans already turning against the franchise as well with all the news that they're trying to move out of Cleveland again. Obviously, Miles Garrett the week before said, "Oh yeah, I might want to get traded." He was really thrown into the fire without any help, and it bore fruits to the point where, they just lose heavily. Ravens wrap up their season. There was nothing. Like Judy got his yards, I guess Atkins got his yards, but there was no run game to speak of when the leader basically in average is Jacob Kabodi, who I had to look up and is out in Louisiana supposedly. When he's leading your running back room by a large margin in terms of like rushing average, which is kind of helped by a 17-yard run, I guess. When he's basically only bright spark on the ground, so you really force him to throw against a really damn good secondary. Cole Hamilton back in his usual role. Nate Wiggins, for as much as I like to wind up with the Ravens, I round up the Ravens fans this week on Twitter by suggesting that was a bad pick, just to troll them a bit. He's playing really well. You couldn't really ask for a worse situation to be thrown into. And then the Ravens, it was nice and easy, even though they had the pressure on them to obviously win, because if they didn't and the Steelers handled their business, the Steelers would have leapt them, I believe.
Yeah. No, Ravens clinched already, didn't they? I don't know. I can't remember. I'm sure you're right. I don't know. But yeah.
There was something there. They had something on the line, I think.
Yeah.
And they did what needs to do. Lamar wasn't exactly electric. Basically 220 yards through the air, another 63 on the ground. Was the Derrick Henry show again?
I think they clinched the North, but they were playing for the 3rd seed versus being the 4th seed. I think that's what it was. But anyway, and I mean, Baltimore just ran away with this. They needed to win to lock up a much easier run in the wild card. But Henry does Henry things. Jackson and Henry is a two-headed monster, with Jackson throwing like he does and both of them being able to run. It's tough to stop, but I think if I remember rightly, Baltimore had some crucial injuries at the back end of this game. I think Zay Flowers went down, didn't he? Or something like that. Just going to be crucial miss in the playoffs if he's got a serious injury.
Yeah, it was a good team versus a bad team, and that was pretty much it. The good team beat the bad team up, and hey, we got we got a thick pick as well. So always there for that. That base is fucking huge. You have to literally throw it in to pick it. It's not a good throw, but I don't think this says much about Zap. I think it's a very hard place to be in there. You're on the road. You're at such high quality opposition, and you're getting harassed for your life every single play. I thought he had some good throws in there. I still think there's something of a guy. There's some sort of reliable backup quarterback there in him for the NFL for his future. But he's never going to be able to do anything in six like that. But it was a bit boring. Let's be honest. They'd have been better off putting the Steelers first, because there was still something to play for there. With Bengals winning it kind of threw everything else out the equation. But yeah, it wasn't great.
Next matchup is Bengals at Steelers. Both teams had something on the line here. The Steelers, if they won, would have been the 5 seed. If they lost and the Chargers won, then the Chargers would be the 5 seed. And the Bengals had to win to stay alive. It would then put them in position to clinch if Denver and Miami lost. So slim chance, but they took that chance. Burrow had to throw 46 times to get it, though. Cincinnati didn't get much on the ground. Russell Wilson didn't have much of anything at all. Despite Pickens being back, Pickens only had 0 yards. In fact, he had the exact same stat line as Jordan Addison, which is quite fun. But, I mean, Pittsburgh had 74 yards on the ground at 3 yards a clip for Najee Harris, which is not exactly a recipe for success. And yet it was only a 2-point game after all of this. So, there were 3 fumbles with 1 lost by Cincinnati. Pittsburgh lost 1 of their own back to Cincinnati. So 1 on the turnover differential, but much more offensive yards for the Bengals. And it was an entertaining game with a big Pittsburgh comeback at the end to kind of make it interesting. But, you wanted more from this game in terms of scoring. It was a gritty one. It was in division. You could tell, almost like our game, it kind of went that way, but with a bit less scoring at the end.
Yeah, I thought it was 2 mid teams who were having a mid off at the end of 77 pass attempts in this thing because no one could run the ball. Like that's where you're at there. Both teams just having to sling it. I think both running backs were going to 3 yards per carry. It was a tough watch. 2 poor offensive lines when it comes to run blocking, and then 2 quarterbacks having to do far too much work to keep each other in it. And that's why you have these low scoring games, because when you're throwing it all the time, it's really easy to defend against. And again, with the Ravens already winning, it took any sort of drama out of this one as well. It was just poor. The Bengals should be ashamed, not making the playoffs with that team. And likewise, the Steelers are going to get bounced by whoever they play in the first round again. So, yeah, it wasn't good. Saturday was a pretty dull day.
The Steelers are away at the Ravens after this in the wild cards. But, I mean, if there's any game the Steelers can win, it's away at the Ravens, because we know that the Ravens have trouble with that game. So maybe the Steelers have got a shout. But, yeah, it was a disappointment there. Ash, any thoughts on this game?
Just a shame that both teams just couldn't run the ball. Obviously, since having Chase Brown out really hurt them, because he's been electric for them this season. Fair play to Jamar Chase, just sealing the Triple Crown, basically. But, it is falling apart there. No, obviously, they've just got rid of the DC. Zach Taylor's really on the hot seat now.
He should be fired.
He should be. He should 100%. He 100% should be. He will, but I think they'll keep around for 1 more season. He's got the excuse of, this, and this. T. Higgins got injured. We had Jamar hold out for a bit. Getting the offensive line together, the defense had the pieces, just wasn't the right guy. It's on him now. It's kind of I don't know, yet again, here's a little bit for your bingo cards, people. Maybe big up FSU. It's like FSU North, that this is he's in that kind of situation now where you've scapegoated everyone else. Now it's on you. If you don't turn things around, you're gone, kind of thing. And fair play to them. They won. They gave themselves a chance to get into the playoffs, but at the same time, they got themselves into that hole. Like when you lose some of your early games by the margins that they did, like you can't lose that. You can't be going to losing to the Patriots first week. Commanders before they really start picking up with Daniels. Just you put yourself in the hole. They put themselves in the hole and just couldn't dig themselves out. They've got no one to blame other themselves.
Yeah.
But that and the big takeaway is obviously if you've got our residents Steelers fans saying they're going to get bounced in the wild card, then no one's got any hope for them.
Moving on to maybe outside of our game, my favourite game in the entire slate. The Carolina Panthers beat the Atlanta Falcons in overtime 44-38. And by the time you go into overtime, the Falcons have been eliminated after the Bucs make a comeback win, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the Falcons needed to win this game to have any hope. And the Panthers just went toe-to-toe with them all game. There wasn't much defense in this game. But what there was both quarterbacks, I thought, looking fantastic. I thought Penix looked better than I thought he had done in previous outings. Bryce Young was an absolute hero. And you know what? They've got a new receiving star. I know Thielen is making these circus catches now. It's like he's been reborn out there. But Jalen Coker has been an absolute sensation. Not only did he have 7 of 7 for 62, but he also had a pass for 19 yards as well. And then on the Atlanta side, I mean, how on earth can you run for 227 yards and have Drake London, of all people, get 10 of 18 for 187 yards and 2 touchdowns, and you lose the game? Like, the Falcons are all at sea at 8 and 9. It's such a disappointing way for them to lose the season, really. I mean, you'd have loved to have pushed the Bucs all the way, but they couldn't even do that against a team which has won 2 on the bounce to finish the season. They were a 3-win team 2 weeks ago. And the way they finish the season, the Panthers, they've got to go into this off-season with bags of optimism, Ash. What a game.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like, to answer your current question when you said, how can you rush for this many yards to get that? That's what happens when you go up against one of the worst defenses in NFL history, somehow. And somehow they still lose because, they did all these moves in the offseason. They brought in the defensive head coach who's supposed to fix the defense. They bring in a veteran guy, pay him a load of money to try and stabilize the offense, and they can still do fuck all. They are basically, and you kind of put it in my head when you said, oh yeah, they're pushing the Bucs close. They are the Spurs of the NFL in a way. all these big names, but when it comes to the actual thing, they choke and they never win anything. Spursy, eh?
Yeah.
But yeah, Panthers, fucking fair play to them. Like, I was on the fence with the Dave Canales hire, especially of how they started. Now he's kind of got Bryce bedded into the system. He's starting to get, obviously, like, his feelings are good to come to his own. Coker's breaking out now. Hell, they've even got Jadavian Sanders, who I hated in the draft. I did not like him at tight end at all. He made some plays in this game. They're getting it all together. I know they've said they come out today and said that DC's sticking around despite what's happened. They get a couple of pieces like defense. They get an actual edge rusher and another corner. They might be in a good place next season. I'm not saying they're going to knock down the Bucs, but they could make it very hard for the Bucs and probably get in as a wild card team. And they're basically on the us from 2020 track now. Yeah. They've got that foundation. Now it's time to start building up on it.
And I know how much of a fan of Bryce Young you were. I mean, in addition to 3 passing touchdowns, he had 2 rushing touchdowns. I seem to remember everyone shouting about a certain Buffalo Bills quarterback when he went absolutely mental with the rushing and the receiving touchdowns. Bryce Young has got to start getting some of these plaudits because the last 6 weeks he's been borderline the top 5 quarterback in the NFL.
It just shows what happens when you back your quarterback. Like, the fact people wrote him off after 1 year on one of the worst teams in the NFL was just ridiculous. Like, the guy's good, but because so many people didn't like him when he was coming to the draft, and people like to be proved right, so you kind of just go all in on him. But who knows? Maybe the benching helped him, just gave him a little bit of time out the limelight, gave the Panthers a bit of chance to stabilize, and now he's back, and they've stuck with him. Even when they've lost, they've still stuck with him. He's playing well, and you've got now for Carolina a core of young guys in there who are starting to play really well. Like, say, Coker's in there playing his ass off. Legette's playing well. Jadavian Sanders is playing well. They're finally using Blackshear a bit more because he's vastly underrated. You've got these guys who are coming in, they're playing well, they're getting confidence, and that's what happens when you're playing a competitive team. And like this win will be huge for them. I know for their draft prospects, it's not the greatest thing, but still, it was like with us. You've got to win games. The more your quarterback wins, the more confidence he's going to get, the more he's going to believe in himself. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy after that. You just keep going. They just need to give him some form of a defense there now because you can't rely on your rookie to go out and win shootouts every week, which is basically what he has to do. And you've got to lighten the burden on him by being able to keep yourself competitive in games with your defense. So it's a big off season for them. They've got a lot of the pieces they need now on their offense, ready to go. Go out there, get your defense. I still think the DC's a really good guy. I think he's probably like Glenn. He's having to deal under-resourced. Not really got his core of young guys in there yet to help him. They've got some good guys, but you need some more. So go draft a stud high, build around him, and then you're set. But for Bryce Young, he's going to be just as good as was advertised, and he's making some of these receivers look damn good. He's made a UDFA in his first year. Like Coker looks amazing, and that takes a lot to be able to get that sort of time in the rhythm with them all. Like say, Thielen's having a career resurgence under him as well. Like good QBs make their receivers look good, and that's what he's doing. So I'm just incredibly happy for him, and hopefully the organization to continue to stick with him and give him the stability he needs. Because if so, you've got to be one dangerous quarterback going forward, and I don't want to face that Panthers team in 2 years' time because that'd be pretty good.
Yeah, me too. I've seen 3 or 4 mock drafts by national organisations, which at 8 have them taking Abdul Carter. If Carter falls to 8 and the Panthers get him, it's gonna be carnage. I mean, they traded away an elite pass rusher in the off-season, and if they replace him with someone on a rookie contract, don't even have to pay for it, really. That's going to be terrific for them. So
keep Clowney and Carter. That is a stud pair of edge rushers you've got right there, and a vet to teach him. So you should probably go up and get him. You want to go up and get your star man. Like they're in a good position to do so. So
yeah, apart from the fact that they went up so high for Bryce, they've only just got back to having picks. But, I agree with you, though. If you can give up a third rounder to go up a couple of spots and go and get him or something, that would be huge. Next game up is the Commanders and Cowboys game. Cowboys looked like they were going to win this game for a good portion of it. It went in 10-9 in the fourth quarter to the Commanders, but Dallas take the lead again and Washington just get over the line at the end. Trey Lance, not sure. Jaden Daniels got benched after half, maybe slightly less. No, it was actually a quarter or so, wasn't it?
It was 2 drives. Yeah, 2 drives, and then they put in Mariota because they want to obviously protect him.
Yeah, and Mariota was terrific, actually. 15 of 18 for 161 and 2 touchdowns. He also had 5 carries for 56 yards and a touchdown, including some really clutch plays down the stretch to get them in position to make the late score to win the game. The win for the Commanders clinched the 6 seed, just consigning the Packers to the 7. I mean, the Cowboys were up late, and so the Packers were looking at bringing back in Jordan Love. We'll talk about that game in a minute. But, the Commanders are losing, so we actually might do this. We actually care about beating the Bears now. Whoops. But Rico Dowd will continue to having a good season for the Cowboys, and, defensively, they're 6 sacks in this game, the Cowboys. 2.5 for Micah Parsons, 1.5 for Chauncey Golston, only 2 for the Washington defense. But Jeremy Chin had a big one in the latter part of what was going on there. Washington also gave up a fumble in there, so Cowboys led it in the turnover margin, still couldn't get it done. I'll end with this, and fuck the Cowboys for potentially, reportedly, benching Cooper Rush so that they didn't have to pay him his incentive. And I don't know whether that's true, but if that is even a smidgen of true, fuck the fucking Cowboys.
I'm pretty sure James Slater said he had to play over 80 reps to get that. There's no way he was playing 80 reps in the game. So,
okay.
They said it was too, and I think she's a reporter for them. Or
okay, it's not bad then. All right.
No, she said that he would have had to play. I think it was 81 or 82 snaps to get his bonus. But I don't blame him for looking at Lance. I mean, I'm talking about Trey Lance. I thought Trey Lance looked pretty good. I thought Trey Lance made some very good throws. I thought Trey Lance, under a lot of pressure from the Washington D line, dealt with it very well. He escaped the pocket very well. He was calm. He was composed. He made some really good throws. Again, he's an example of he's got a year. Like the guy's just not had a chance to be an NFL quarterback. I know the injury didn't help him, but there's still a reason he was picked third overall, like Darnold, and he's just not been given the opportunity to show it. So if you're a team out there and you're not in contention to get one of the big quarterbacks in this draft, get him and give him a go. There's a reason he was drafted that high, and I think that again the possibility is endless with him. I thought he looked damn good, and he seems settled there. He's been there a while now, played well. It was an entertaining game for what it was. Obviously, it was nice for the Commanders to win it. They've been a feel-good story this year, but Cowboys played well, Lance played well, Dowdle played well. They got some young guys themselves making plays, so they've got some bits there if they want to. But someone really should give him a go, like the Vikings did with Darnold, because I don't think they'd regret it.
Ash, Commanders just about pull this one out for seeding purposes, and Cowboys slightly improve their draft stock. Few other talking points, but otherwise, the clutch plays at the end by Mariota to get it done. And I mean, he's a weird one, isn't he, Mariota? Because just when you give up on him as a quarterback, he has some of these games sometimes where he looks like a bona fide starter again.
Yeah, it's weird, but I'm looping back against the Cooper Rush thing. So it was 81 snaps supposedly he needed. The Cowboys offense played 78, and there was a couple of drives where they could add more, so he actually could have done it. Cooper Rush could have done it and got that incentive. So maybe, they're a bit dickheadish. Same time, they're also probably going to, I know obviously it makes sense to do what they're about to do, but obviously the fact the Bears have put into request in for Mike McCarthy, and they're probably going to turn it down, even though McCarthy then in a week's time when his contract's up can go and talk to them anyway. But there was a few good plays for the Cowboys. Obviously, Jalen Tolbert, nearly 100 yards. There's a receiver that can build around next year, everyone else. But yeah, the Commanders, for the most part, it was just give Daniels a couple of drives just to, make sure the rest he's still there. And then, to put in the backups, protect him. Like when you've got Diami Brown also attempts in the pass as well, someone who was way overdrafted potentially and then got buried on their depth chart. Says it all. Just for good kind of showing from their defense as well to at least, for the most part, to play well. That might bear them well in the next couple of weeks because they've got that kind of thing behind them now where, for the most part, we shut down the Cowboys. Wasn't the best Cowboys, but this is the Cowboys everyone knows and raves about. We held them to less than 20 points. So they've got a bit of momentum going into the playoffs there as well.
Moving on to the next one, Bears at Packers. Bears get the monkey off their back with a first win over the Packers in, 5 years? 6 years? Absolutely ridiculous stat. Bears pull it out after having given it back to the Packers on a plate. They led 14-13 at the half, no score in the third quarter, and then win the final quarter 10-9. Jordan Love had to leave the game after an injury to his throwing elbow, I believe. Good news for the Packers in that apparently it looks like it's minor. Willis came in, and how he wasn't injured in the game, I don't know. He took a horrific sack. It was really, really big shot. Green Bay had 183 rushing yards on this game, 2 touchdowns. That's more rushing yards than Caleb Williams had passing yards. And Keenan Allen maybe threw the worst pick of all time on a stupid fake play that they were running to Xavier McKinney. So he's a level now with our own Kirby Joseph in terms of interceptions, I believe, which is just a joke. And so Chicago had 224 yards of offense. Green Bay had 367. And they had 2 fumbles lost to Chicago's 1 and an interception. So they were level in the turnover margin. So they're level in the turnover margin, and Green Bay outdid them by 140 yards of offense. How on earth did the Bears win this game? And the funniest part about all of this is that the Packers really wanted to get out the 7 seed, or they should have wanted to get out the 7 seed to avoid Philly. And the Bears really should have wanted to have lost this game to improve their draft stock. And the funniest thing is the reverse of those. Both of those things happened despite what the stats tell you about this game. And watching it, the Bears should have won this game. They were clearly in control of it, and they wanted to give it away as much as possible. You were there for the smoke for all of this game. I know you absolutely love the carnage.
Oh yeah. It's funny actually. There's one game I don't mind the Bears winning because they don't help their draft position from this. And to be honest, it does absolutely nothing for them. It's a meaningless win. The Green Bay going to get bounced in the playoffs. They just don't look good. I know Love's sporting an injury. I think he's going to be all right, but he's been knocked up this season. He doesn't look the player he did in year one. Obviously, Watson's done with his ACL, which is a massive shame. Hopefully, he's back for next year. But yeah, it was an atrocious game. Like neither of these teams seemed to want it. Like the Packers didn't. It didn't feel like they were playing for seeding, which could be big for them because if I'm them, I'd rather go to Tampa than to Philly. And they never really seemed interested in doing that. And even towards the end, you get the field goal at the end, and then you just sit so deep against Caleb, allow him to make a couple of passes to get them into field goal range. It's like, what are you doing? Like, go after him, force him under pressure. How many teams have beaten them by blitzing them on final drives and forcing them into a stupid mistake? You just sit back there in very, very, very soft coverage and allow them to move on you. And quite frankly, they got what they deserved. And as much as I would have loved the Bears to have missed another walk-off field goal to increase their pain this year, they've suffered enough. So it's fine. It's an embarrassing loss for Green Bay. Bears lose a couple of places in the draft picks. Everybody wins there.
Ash, funny game in the NFC North.
Yeah, and the good news is McKinney only got one interception, so he's still behind Kirby. He's outright second by himself because Kirby has 10, save McKinney has 9. Next one is there's like 3 players tied for third, like one of them CJGJ with 8. So Kirby's still got it, thank God. The fact that when Willis was in, he actually, I know we obviously took the sacks, he actually looked kind of okay. Kind of like early in the season when he had to come in for Love. I am here for the Packers potentially having a QB controversy in training camp next season. Because if I'm Malik Willis, I'm like, look, I was a lot better. Give me a fair shot. And they have to kind of, because I know they obviously paid Love, but if they want to get back to where they were, where the heights where we are and where Minnesota kind of are now, they have to go with the best guy. And right now, that looks like Willis. It really does. And I know obviously Love had, as you say, the injury to his throwing arm, where supposedly even 2 hours after it happened, he still couldn't feel his arm. That's not good at all. That's really not good at all, especially when I know you're going up against a Philly team right now that hurts in the concussion protocol and all this. They've looked dross the past couple of weeks. Like, I know it's a rematch of the first Friday night football game of the season. Just instead of being in Brazil, it's in Lincoln Financial Field, so just destitute in some ways. The Eagles are going to steamroll them. Saquon Barkley probably is going to run for 200 yards, and I wouldn't be surprised. As for the Bears, fair play. You've managed to win a game, but you and the funniest thing is because they've obviously won this game. The Packers went 1-5 in the division. How the fuck can you say you're a good team and you go 1-5 in our? I know our division's hard than that, but we won every single one of them. How? It just shows maybe that the Packers can beat. They're the kind of us from like 2016 can beat up on the shit teams, unless obviously some plays go the opposite way. But as soon as it comes to playing a good team, or a team that knows you well, you're done for. They really need to have a rethink in the offseason, I think.
Yeah, moving on to Texans-Titans. Texans win 23-14. Nothing on the line in this game apart from Titans trying to improve their the draft prospects for them this year. Will Levis had one big touchdown late for 49 yards to Tay Martin, who is a guy I've literally never heard of. Calvin Ridley hit his yards target to get his incentive, but other than that, the quarterback play was pretty abysmal across the board. The game basically came down to Dameon Pierce had a 92-yard rushing touchdown. And I don't have anything else to say about it. CJ Stroud was benched after one drive where he went 6 for 50 and a touchdown. I have nothing on this game, really. Like, it's just meh to me.
Yeah, just it was a nothing burger. Like I completely agree. Deontay Johnson finally, actually caught some balls for the first time in a while. But yeah, just nothing. Just nothing. Well, I say that Titans defense can really pat themselves on the back. They've played really well this season, and I hope their DC actually gets hired by a better team. Go to Cincy. Go to Cincy.
And any thoughts on this one?
No.
Fair. I like it. I like it. Short and sweet. We're going to come straight back to you for this one, though. And this was a borderline fun game that meant absolutely nothing. Again, Jags just trying to improve their draft position, go away to the Colts and lose in overtime 26-23. I thought both quarterbacks looked pretty good. Mac Jones 20 of 32 for 225, a touchdown and a pick. And his borderline looked fairly good in relief of Trevor Lawrence all the way through the year. Joe Flacco 23 of 40 for 264 and a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor is the one who really did the business with 34 carries for 177 yards and a touchdown. But Brian Thomas had another 100-yard day. And then Indianapolis kind of spread it out a bit. But Josh Downs had a good day, 94 yards for him. Pittman was 72. Alec Pierce, he only gets a couple of catches. But when he does, they go big. 2 of 2 for 57 and a touchdown, including a 40-yarder. And this was a fun game that went to overtime and the Colts pull it out for, I don't know, salvaging some pride on this season, I guess. But man, what could have been for this Colts team?
And for the Jags as well. They did. I know they weren't great, but there was the ingredients there for them to go out and do something in a not so competitive conference. But Pedersen's sort of held them back. Obviously, injuries haven't helped, and the Colts have just been a mess. It's one of those. I didn't actually realize they'd gone that long without a playoff win. They're up to 7 years now, and you kind of assume the Colts have been in there and won and done this and that. But they've actually been mediocre for a very long time. But there was some just good standout. Like what you watch this game for the players, not the teams. Like you said, Brian Thomas is. I mean, you think about it. This wide receiver class that's just come out of the draft. Like outside of like the Chase class, which was great. How great has this class been for the rookies this year? Like Brian Thomas has had nearly 1,300 yards. Malik Neighbors had briefly set the most receptions record for a rookie until Bowers overtook him.
He has a single season receptions record for the Giants all time.
Exactly.
For anyone.
Like he's in there. You've got Lab McConkey who's had a 1,200-yard season. This has actually been low key an incredibly good first year for this wide receiver class. I think it's maybe surprised because it didn't have the outright ultimate star outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., who I think he's been good. He's just been played by a team as well. But like the young rookie receivers this year have been incredibly fun to watch, which kind of saved this. But Brian Thomas is going to be amazing. He's going to get paid a lot of money by another team to go and win a Super Bowl. I can't see him. I can't see him been there that long, the rate they're going, because they're going to have to build again. They're just a mess all over the place. But he was fun to watch in terms of this one. Like I say, it's just one of those, us waiting for our game. It was great. Jonathan Taylor looked back to his good self. There's so many good receivers on that Indy team who had their great days as well. Josh Downs, I love watching him play. Like, just offensively, it was very fun. So, yeah. Just inoffensive end of season game, which wasn't boring.
Yeah, Ash, a fun Week 18 game.
Yeah, it was. Nice little sort of ding-dong battle between two franchises, one of which is now obviously looking for a new head coach, one of which should be, but the owner won't fire either. But actually, no, yeah, both franchises should be looking for new head coaches and new GMs, but, one owner's very resistant in one way that he wants to stick out another year because he thinks they can do something. The other one's got rid of the head coach but won't give rid of the GM because they're best buds. But it was a fun little game. Like when some of them were just boring, had nothing really to go on it, and just both teams were just like, let's get this over and done within 60 minutes. These two were like, right, neither of us have got anything to play for, so let's just have a bare knuckle boxing match and see who can win. So it was a good little game to follow along with out the corner of my eye while I was at the gym. Just, I know obviously, we're saying about the rookie receiver, it's kind of to tell the two cities in a way, but the two rookie receivers in this one, because obviously Brian Thomas, great game. Adonai Mitchell, one target, no catches. Tale of two cities.
Next up is Bills at Patriots. Bills had locked up the 2 seed, had nothing to play for. Josh Allen did not suit up for this game, and the Patriots just needed to lose to get the number 1 overall pick. But credit to the Patriots, they went out there wanting to win the game, and they did just that. Drake May threw 1 pass before coming out of the game. Joe Milton came in and looked like a legitimate quarterback. It was absolutely amazing. He went 22 of 29 for 241 and a touchdown, but I think his first 7 or 8 passes were all completions, and they were not gimmies. He also ran 10 carries for 16 yards and a touchdown. I remember there was one rep where someone tried to hit him, and he just looked at him like, what are you doing? I'm so much bigger than you. It was a big man moment. I absolutely loved it. And Kayshon Boutte, what an end to the season he's had. 7 of 7 for 117 and a touchdown for him. And the Bills didn't quit on this game, but they never looked like they were going to win this. The only thing that, were crossing people's minds was maybe New England would kind of just fold at the end to try and get that draft pick. But there is no such thing as tanking in the NFL. There's just bad cultures. And Mayo gets the win that denies now his former team getting that number 1 pick, Ash.
Yeah. I would have loved for the Patriots to have signed and lost this, kind of do the tank, get that number overall pick, and try and trade back. I know most teams probably wouldn't trade up because his QB class is very bad, but just to get themselves a little bit of extra capital, come back a couple of spots, maybe get a Will Campbell or Travis Hunter or Ted McMillan, just to give May a bit of help. But at the same time, you need to learn how to win. And I think, honestly, them winning this game might have been the push that Kraft got Kraft to fire Mayo, because if maybe they got the first overall pick, he'll be like, okay, yeah, I did this. We're having one bad year. We've got a chance to get all these things. We can have our pick of the players. The fact that now this has happened, and now they're picking, they're picking 4th, so they can still maybe get a Travis Hunter, Ted McMillan, Will Campbell, but there's not that thing of, oh yeah, we've also traded back and got a few more picks. They've done that, but they've learned how to win. Like May obviously was in there for a couple of snaps. Milton looks like a damn good backup QB, and if some teams get a bit desperate, kind of like what they did a couple of years ago with Jimmy G and Brissett, if a team gets desperate in the offseason, let's say, I don't know, who's a team that might, let's say Cincy. I don't want to put it on Joe Burrow, but he seems he's always getting injured. So at the same time, if Burrow gets injured in the offseason, he's out for the season, do the Bengals maybe trade for Milton and see if they can kind of grit it out? I could see it. So that would definitely help them. Boutte break out. The Murray Douglas, kind of quiet game for him, which makes me sad because I kind of do like him. But for the big thing for me, Jaheim Bell, 19-yard reception, people. There's an FSU player doing some good in the league. And on the other side, another one with Keon getting his 2 catches for 31 yards and a carry for 9 yards. Just the Bills at this point were throwing it in anyway. Obviously, Josh Allen was the emergency third QB. They just gave Ray Davis a lot of run to see what he's got. They did what they needed to do. This really meant no consequence to them other than getting some of the backup snaps. So fair play to them. But also fair play to the Patriots for, breeding winning in that culture, because they need it right now.
And Bills weren't playing for anything, and it kind of showed a little bit. Trubisky didn't look fantastic. They couldn't get anything going on the ground. But Patriots played this game hard, and credit to them.
Got to. A lot of these players are fighting for their future in the NFL. There's a lot of guys who are going to be out of contract, who are going to be trying to click onto a roster, and you've got to put up good game tape. And, there's some guys who went out there and put out some really solid game tape, which may end up getting them a job in the future. So, this is what you want to see. You don't want to see these teams roll over and have their bellies tickled. And quite frankly, there's no one worth the number 1 overall pick in the draft this year. So you ain't wasting much by not having that pick. You're not going to be able to trade it for a haul. There's no superstar, like blue chip superstar who's going to get you the world in return. So they're still going to be able to draft someone really good. They've got their quarterback, which is their main thing. You build around him, hopefully you get a sensible head coaching decision. I think firing Mayo is an abomination. It's disgusting and it's going to set them back. But hey, who, it is what it is. But you're still going to have a good pick to work with. You got your quarterback to work with. You've got reasons to be positive going forward. You've just got to do this thing right now. You've got to, you've got to start drafting properly for one. They don't draft very well. So I don't know why it's just Mayo who's gone. I don't know why anyone in his scouting department's not gone. So maybe these issues will persist. But yeah, it was good to see them carry on fighting, and it wasn't the worst game again in the world either. And again, just I'd rather see teams win games than just abjectly give up, because they're the teams that just never come back when they do that.
Mm. Next one up is the Giants-Eagles game. Eagles win 20-13, consigns the Giants to a 3-win season, but they couldn't get the number 1 overall pick. Can't remember why. I think it's tiebreakers or something like that they'd already.
Strength of schedule was a lot better than both Cleveland's and Tennessee, and the thing wouldn't flip with.
That makes sense. Yeah. Tanner McKee looked like a real quarterback still. 27 of 41 for 269, 2 touchdowns, no picks. They couldn't get anything going on the ground, which harmed their chances in this game. It was 10-0 through the first half, 10-3 at the end of the third quarter. It looked like the Giants were kind of borderline coming back into this game, which would have just been funny. It was 17-13 before finally Philly got a field goal to make it a 7-point game. And Drew Lock couldn't repeat his heroics of the previous week. Neighbors got his touchdown and another 5 catches to break that record you spoke of, and to get the Giants franchise record too. The Giants, Tanner McKee looks fine. Maybe should be their backup going forward, or their starter going into the playoffs if obviously Jalen Hurts can't go with his concussion. I think he looks better than Kenny Pickett potentially, but I think it's a kind of a borderline worrying sign that a Giants team that kind of doesn't have a lot going for it pushes you this way.
Does, but again, Drew Lock's fighting for a job. Like, again, a lot of these guys are going to be fighting for jobs going forward, and they, they're trying to impress as well. Actually, I don't mind watching the Giants because I love watching Malik Neighbors so much. Like, he's such a damn good receiver. Like, the way he's just taken like a duck to water to this entire thing has just been incredible. And against some good DBs in that conference as well. Yeah, he's looked unflappable, and he's been a massive star for them this year. So again, it was nice to see some of these fringe guys just be able to get out there and give it a go. Again, Tanner McKee's a good quarterback, and there's something there with him. So give him some game time, give him some reps, and, who knows what you're going to get. But again, another very calm performance, composed, and he was out there against the Giants' D-line. Like, Kayvon got a sack and a half. Brian Burns was out there. So it's not like he was going up against, guys off the street trying to pass rush him. It was a bona fide threat, and he had a lot of pressure to deal with, and he dealt with it very well. So it was fun. When the Giants made their way back into this, it was a fairly fun little game to watch. Some of these games surpassed my expectations. But yeah, Neighbors is just incredibly fun. I love watching some of these guys. He's awesome. Like, he's going to be absolutely tremendous in a couple of years. Like, he'd be one of the best receivers in the league.
Pretty close to it already. Ash, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And I'm looking at the Philly receiving, like the fact they managed to get something out of Jahan Dotson, something that the Commanders just couldn't. Like, they tried get him mid-season, and by the end, they've getting him nearly 100 yards. This shows that maybe there was a few issues there on the offense, and that's why the Bears should definitely hire Cliff Kingsbury. But yeah, it's everyone getting everyone else, like Nia Smith getting some run, EJ Jenkins, my guy Johnny Wilson getting 5 targets, 3 catches. Kenneth Gainwell, Will Shipley getting some run. They obviously used it for getting their backups to run. So Tanner McKee does look good. That's another guy I can see if teams get desperate in the off-season with some injuries, he could be on his way in the best way possible. But also some other guys like Oren Burks, who used to be a Packer, him getting 17 total tackles for the Eagles. Again, kind of like what I said a minute ago, the game before, getting your backup some reps just in case there's an injury in the playoffs. They can come in and they already know what they're doing rather than them literally being thrown in the deep end. It's good, and it's also good from the Giants to show that bit of fight, try and get back into the game late, because they could have easily phoned it and said, well, we're already consigned to a bad pick. Let's just protect ourselves, make some business decisions, come back next year. Instead, they actually did try, and it was good to see.
Next game up, Saints-Buccaneers. Buccaneers had to win to get in, and the Saints were on a tear to start this game. They were up 16-6 at the half, up 19-13 at the start of the fourth quarter. But the Bucs clutch down the stretch, getting a few scores to finally take this game and clinch the NFC South. Baker, 21 of 32, 221, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Bucky Irving, 19 carries for 89 yards and a touchdown. He's been a revelation for me in Tampa Bay, Bucky Irving. He's really transformed the fortunes of that team. And I'm talking about rookie receivers. Jalen McMillan is an absolute stud. He was 5 of 6 for 74 and a touchdown, but always seems to come up with a big clutch score. Mike Evans continued the streak, 9 of 14 for 89 for him. But on the other side, the Saints had their way with the Bucs to start this game. Spencer Rattler hit maybe his first performance where I genuinely thought he looked pretty good. 26 of 42 for 240 and a touchdown. Their problem, they went 19 carries for 64 yards on the ground, just couldn't get anything going there. Ash, this game was fun for the chaos it looked like it was going to be causing in the NFC South, but eventually Tampa pull it out, and you know what? It's good to have the better teams in the postseason, and this Tampa team just legitimately is better than the Falcons.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with Bucky Irving being a revelation. They've kind of been calling out for a running back for a while, and they might have actually kind of found it now. And I agree, McMillan's been absolute revelation for them out of Washington. Obviously, I know that was a really damn good class for Washington in terms of wide receivers coming out. Glad for Mike Evans as well. I know obviously someone is about to probably correctly make the case for him being the most underrated receiver in the league, and he should be in the Hall of Fame, so I'll leave it to him. Payne Durham, one of my guys getting the touchdown. Love to see that. On the other side, I'm just looking. I can't see a certain guy making any catches or targets. I can't. Where were you when your team needed you, EQ? Where were you? Oh wait, you shit. Just.
So unnecessary.
It's unnecessary, but I have to make that dig at him. Like, there's enough there. Like, Rattler showed enough, which is why, again, I know it's kind of going off the beaten path here. The fact that they've put a request in for the former Stanford head coach, who was there for Andrew Luck and for all these guys. I like that kind of move. It's someone's a bit under the radar, someone that's known for developing QBs. When you've got Rattler, who is showing flashes of potentially being a good NFL QB, obviously, despite all like the stuff that's happened before with him, you make that move because when you have a couple of years to rebuild because of the cap situation, if you can then come out the other side with a QB is fully there, a couple of weapons around him and a good defense, again, with how the NFC South always is, they could be contenders in the next couple of years if they do this right. They've showed the flashes here where Tampa had everything on the line and the Saints put the wind up them. They really did.
And I suspect this was a game that you borderline enjoyed again for the chaos, but just also, you know, Rattler doing bits was quite heartening, and Bucky Irving doing things, and you were saying about the rookie receivers, and Jalen McMillan's just so amazing. And then Evans, of course, continues the streak, and they had to feed him it at the end, but he got there.
I think legitimately the Bucs are the closest thing to us in the NFL in that they looked horrible for a lot of this game. Kind of like we did against the Texans, and then just somehow, you know, they're going to pull it out their ass where they do well, and they get that drive in the first one, the first touchdown they get. It's something switches, and then that good team that you know is in there with them just appears, and it, you know, it just comes out of nowhere. I really do feel like they're built like us in terms of how they got the quarterback, in terms of the way they've gone about it. They've got a good head coach. And, you know, I really did want them to do it. I do genuinely like them because I think they mirror us so much. They're hardworking, they're gritty, they're tough to play against. They've got a lot of good trench players who just go out there and kick your ass. And, you know, they found themselves in a hole and they responded very admirably to it because they're under a lot of pressure because the Falcons were winning at the time. So it would have been very easy for them to get out of step. And Baker looked... Let's face it, Baker looked awful to start with. They're just doing nothing good whatsoever. So to see them turn it round was really good, and to see them win it and get through because, you know, low-key, I want to see them do well. Not play us, but, you know, at the same point, I want to see them do well. And I thought it was very classy of them at the end to give Mike his yards. Like, because again, you're in a critical situation where you don't really want to be putting the ball in the air. You want to kneel this thing out and remove anything out the equation for this. And for them to go after him and get the yardage for him was just tremendous. Like, he's earned it. He's missed games this season and he's still got up there. He is like, because everyone just, when they talk about receivers in the NFL, everyone talks about Jefferson, everyone talks about Chase. No one goes Mike Evans. And you're like, why? Because he's 1,000-yard guy every single year. He's durable. He's always he's always there. He's always playing. He's just, and you look at him and you're like, yeah, he's got a ring. He's done everything he needs to pretty much. So yeah, I just have I just have an affinity for that team. I think it's just because they're so similar to us.
Yeah.
Saints, it's fine. It's been a shitty year. Hopefully this is the year they decide, you know what, we're going to stop kicking the cap down the can. We're going to start blowing it up. We're going to do this properly. Because look at them. In fairness, it's been like two clowns fighting one another between Tampa and the Falcons trying to close this out and win the division. It is not a good division outside of Tampa when they're healthy. It's poor. And look at them. They're still miles away from doing anything. And yet they're still persisting with this, they're still trying to convince themselves that they're in the here and now and that they're competitive. They're so far away. Just do it this year. Start cutting some of these big contracts. Take on a fuck ton of dead money for next year. Let the Bucks have another year with it. And then build properly. They're not going to, but they should, because this was a big wake-up call for them. Like, of how far behind they are. Like, Tampa, on one of their worst days, were still able to come back and beat them. So, they're at a crossroads now. You got Spencer Rattler. Perfect opportunity to tell Carr to go hit the fucking bricks and use Rattler, see what you've got with him. If you're going to have a tank year next year, at worst, he's going to come through looking like Drake May this year, and you're like, oh, got a guy. I got a high draft pick. I got some money finally. This franchise can start going in the right direction. So give them a go. I'm all for giving these young guys a chance now. Just stop having these old vets in blocking their development. It's just no good for anybody.
Just to highlight exactly what Mike Evans' incentive was, if you didn't hear, he needed 70 receptions, 10 touchdowns, and 1,000 receiving yards to receive $3 million. And he was 5 yards short with 36 seconds left. And the Saints just let him have it. Like, they're just like, we aren't winning this game, so you go ahead. And I thought that was pretty cool, actually, to be honest. But it's interesting because you know that, like, in the heart of hearts, the front office would be like, that's hurting our rollover for the cap next year. And the number of people that do that does hurt. But in the end, good organisations care about the existing players more than whatever's going to happen in the future. And Tampa Bay's a good organisation, so just works for them. Right, next up is the game where I have to take a super massive L. Chiefs at Broncos, where I managed to talk myself and Ash into saying that the Chiefs were going to win this game and the Broncos needing a win to get in the playoffs. I just thought this was right for a Carson Wentz victory lap where he remind the league that he's a real boy. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. 38-0 for the Broncos. Bo Nix, 26 of 29 for 321 yards and 4 passing touchdowns. He also led the team in rushing with 7 for 47. Marvin Mims had 2 receiving touchdowns. Cortland Sutton had 1. Devon Vele had 1. Brilliant outing by the Broncos all around. They have 5 sacks on the day, 2 by Nick Bonito, who has had a crazy season by his standards. He's got 13.5 sacks, which is 3rd in the NFL in this defense, which has played so damn well. And I don't think anyone's going to want to play the Broncos because you know what? You probably should beat them, especially if you're bringing them to your house. But they're funky on defense, and Bo Nix has just got something about him, and their receivers are coming to life now as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird seeing the Chiefs like this. I get, obviously, that's just not going to be the case all the time going forward, but it's good to see Nix playing well. You know, he was perfect. He was like 20 of 20, I think, at one stage through this. It was crazy how many completions he got. He was just absolutely bullying that Kansas side. They weren't able to get the pass rush. I think it was noticeable the pass rush just wasn't there. They were sitting everybody. Karlaftis wasn't in, Chris Jones wasn't in. I think that was the most noticeable thing, and it allowed them to pick on some parts of the secondary. Like, as bad as this was for the Chiefs, there were still some really good performances in there. Jaden Hicks looked legit. Like, this is his first year in the league, his round 4 pick. Joshua Williams looked legit. He was the only corner who didn't get picked on by them. He was stout all game long. You know, rep the HBCUs, Joshua Williams. Well done. But the Broncos have nothing to lose. Who've they got? The Bills. So, like, what have they got to lose? Nobody is expecting them to win. It's going to be a very tough environment to play in, given the snowstorm that's over there at the minute, engulfing all of New York, and it's going to be freezing cold. But this is a young team who've got a lot of good parts there. They're getting the best out of guys like Marvin Mims. He's had a breakout second year. He's looking good. You know, they've just got a free hit to go and do something. They're going to need to run the ball a lot better. That's the one thing they didn't do well in this. Like, the running the ball was terrible, so they just like tossed it up through the air. But they've got enough on defense to last. And the Bills do make mistakes in the playoffs, so this is definitely a banana skin for the Bills. It's a free hit for the Broncos. First time in 8 years you're in the playoffs. Just go have fun. Give them everything you've got, and as long as you can say you gave them your best, no one's really going to care what the result is. So, you know, good for them and good for Knicks. You want to see these young guys get the opportunities in the playoffs. So it could be fun. I'm not sure it will be, but we'll see.
Ash?
Yeah, like, number one, well, screw myself for actually listening to you and changing my pick on this game, because I was right. And
don't listen to me. What are you doing?
True. Should always listen to myself. I know better. But number two, here's a fun little game. Can you name where Nico Remeggio, who was the Chiefs' leading receiver in this game, where he's from?
Nico,
exactly.
Germany. I don't know.
I was meant college-wise.
Oh, Utah.
Actually, that's very close, I think, in terms of geography. Fresno State. So that kind of same neck of the woods. Carson, like, all my belief that Carson Wentz could be a good backup quarterback kind of died in this game. Less than 100 yards passing. Like, in total, 27 offensive plays, let's say, because they had 28 then. 11 carries and then 17 dropbacks for the QBs. Like, what is going on? Like, what? And yeah, even though that's the scary thing for the Chiefs was, even though Denver were really bad running the ball, they still had 43 carries. Denver felt that much in control in the second half. They were like, even though we know this is going to make us go 3 and out, we're just going to keep running the ball. And maybe, I'm not saying this is expose a load of things on there, because obviously I know they're playing their backups and that, but the fact that this supposedly really good offense and defense and that weren't able to even pop a single point or really make a stop other than the second half, that does not bode well for them. It makes them look that little tiny bit more vulnerable, which we already knew they were. I know we've got the same record as them, but the fact that they've not scored more than 30 points all season in the playoffs, where sometimes that's what you need to do. Let's say if they do face the Bills again this year in the championship game, I have a lot more faith that the Bills can do it this year, because, yeah, I know the Chiefs got all the history behind them. But when they can't put 30 points, we know very, very well, because of what happened on my birthday, that the Bills can score more than 30 points at will. They are really putting themselves into a corner right now. They have to have a lot of luck go their way in their playoffs, potentially. And it has shaken my faith in them a bit. It really has.
Next game up's the Chargers at the Raiders, and Chargers handle business, and they lock up a 5 seed when they could have been the 6th seed, so something on the line for them. Raiders weren't playing for anything apart from pride, but they've been in that position for a little while, and they've been playing damn hard. Herbert was great, 28-36, 346 and 2 touchdowns. But Aiden O'Connell, I thought looked really good again, 24-34, 214, 2 touchdowns and a pick. He's put himself in the frame to maybe start next year, or at least be in a battling camp when that really didn't look like it was a possibility earlier on this season. Raiders with no Amir Abdullah couldn't get anything going on the ground, missing RB1 over there. But otherwise, Brock Bowers breaks the record for rookie receptions. Jacoby Myers had a really good day too, 9 of 10 for 123 and a touchdown. Quentin Johnson, oh my word, 13 of 14 for 186 yards. Maybe the best wide receiver performance on the day. Ash, Chargers took care of business, stopped the Raiders running, and that kind of won them the game, despite the fact that Vegas looked passable. They had respectability in this game.
They really did. It's kind of obviously helped by Bowers having that great just a great game. I know it's not great on the stat sheet, but breaking those kind of records is amazing. I just feel bad for Michael Mayer. Like, this guy could probably be a starting tight end for half the teams in the league, and yet he's a tight end too for not even a good team. Feels bad, man. But Jacoby Myers, there's a weapon that if they do stick with Aiden O'Connell next year, they need a couple of pieces on defense for sure, maybe a weapon or two, and a bit better on the offensive line. But they're, again, building blocks. They've got AOC. They've got Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer now. That's a couple of weapons. They can start building around that. There's hope for the future, even if they do stick with Pierce, who the only good thing about him is that he wears starter jackets, so he looks like he's a head coach from the 1990s, which just satisfies a bit of my brain. As for the Chargers, did what they needed to do. John Q finally remembered how to be a receiver again, looked like the first round receiver that he was supposed to be. So he's probably going to fall off next week. It always happens with him. He has one good game, then he dips for a couple of weeks, has a good game, dips for a couple of weeks. A certain receiver who a person on this panel thinks should have been in the top days of 10 prospects in this past draft class also had a good game. I will admit that. Nearly 20 yards of catch is very nice. Well done. Hassan Haskins also had a decent day with his touchdown. There's a guy that Harbaugh knows well. Still probably going to have to put up with the fact I've now resigned myself to two of my favourite college running backs going to teams that I don't kind of like, with obviously Giante potentially going to the Cowboys and now Cam going to the Chargers. That just fits so well. Imagine Justin Herbert with him. Scary. And that defense still doing things. I know you look, especially with their blitz, I think they found out that this season now the Chargers defense has been first in the league in EPA when blitzing. That's insane. Keep it going.
And Chargers, were good in this game, but like I said before to Ash, Raiders respectable.
I thought it was really fun, to be fair. Like a nice little shootout there, and the Raiders gave as good as they got. Aiden O'Connell did well. He was getting harassed all game long. And again, who made a lot of good throws. There was some picks in there, including to Diane Henley. Well done on your first interception, my boy. He looks so good. He looks so damn good. I know we didn't need him, but hey ho. This Chargers team are really good. He's getting the best out of these rookies. QJ looks awesome. Again, I think he got way too much tap on a bad team. I think he's a really good receiver, and he's showing it now. He's got confidence, and he's looking every bit the confident receiver that they wanted to draft out at TCU. I thought, he looks really good. So I'm looking forward to see what the Chargers do in the playoffs. It's pretty much the only game in the wild card this weekend which I feel like has a sense of jeopardy about it. There's two really good teams and both of them could win. The others don't feel like that to me. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in the playoffs. So, and shout out to leading tackler on the team and Rutgers transfer in Tarheeb still. Jason Bell, you prick.
There it is, the weekly reference.
All right. Next one is Seahawks at the Rams. Rams needed to win to lock up the third seed, but they benched everybody. And frankly, Jimmy Garoppolo should have been enough to get this done. But you know what? He just wasn't, because Geno Smith came to play. And man, he's a tough motherfucker. 20 of 27 for 223, 4 touchdowns, no picks. And he took a heck of a shot, went out on the sideline, but was all ready to come back into the game if he needed to be. This game was marred by a forearm break by Blake Corum, former Michigan man. That really hurts, especially given that they are going to be going into the playoffs now at home against the Minnesota Vikings. And another one that's just a bit of a head scratcher to me. I mean, if you're the Rams, surely you want to avoid being the 4 seed as much as humanly possible here. Like, yeah, fine, okay, you rest you guys and avoid some injury, but the chance they lose now in the wild card has gone up massively going against a 14-win team. I mean, you always talk about the benefit of winning games for their own sake, and the Rams, they didn't mail it in. Jimmy G looked okay, but it would have been easier if Matthew Stafford was in the game, right?
Yeah, but we all know like McVay's the biggest analytics guy in the league, and the analytics tell you to rest your guys and be ready for the playoffs. You know, that's how he sees it. Like, you've got to rest these guys up, and you know, whichever opposition you face, he'll now go, well, yeah, we're facing a 14-win team, but all my players are healthy. Obviously, there's going to be questions to ask if it backfires and they lose, which would be hilarious. But at this point, like I said the other day, my hate scales in flux at the moment. I have no idea. Like, my hate scales, like it's in the Bermuda Triangle. It doesn't know what to do, and I don't know what to do with it. So, but it was a really fun game. Like, the Seahawks just came and gave everything they got, and the Rams still went for it despite sitting a bunch of guys. And there was some really good performances in there again all round. I mean, hey, AJ Barner's starting to look like something for the Seahawks now, the Michigan man. He's been a little quiet. You know, he looked damn good this game. So, you know, maybe he's going to be a big part for them going forward. I mean, UTEP guy, Tyrese Knight, he got a sack in this as well. Good for him. Another undersized linebacker who's getting his dues. Like, these games give some big, valuable reps for them, but it was just a gunslinger. This was just going backwards and forwards. The lead, you didn't know who was going to win, but Seattle always just looked a little bit more there because, yeah, they had their starters out there. And, you know, kudos to them, you know, with nothing to play for, giving it a really good go, giving us a really good game. And to be fair, I do actually like the fact that the Rams and the Vikings are playing one another now because, you know, it's the battle of the two biggest lots of... Who are they going to blame? They can't blame Detroit for whoever's going to lose in this, so I'm looking forward to seeing them all turn on one another. Going to be fun as. But no, this was low key. Really, one of the best games of the weekend. This was very, very fun.
Ash?
The only thing I've got to say is nice to see former Lions preseason wonder Jake Bobo score a touchdown.
Oh, I knew that was coming. I saw it pop up on my fantasy app that he scored a touchdown. I was like, I'm going to hear from this on Monday. There we go. Anyway, moving on from shithousery. Anyone see that Zach Charbonnet had 32 receiving yards and 0 catches? That's good, isn't it? Must have done a hook and ladder-y sort of play, but anyway.
Yeah, they did.
But otherwise, Seattle 10-7, but don't make the playoffs. Ernest Jones has been one of their best players coming over from a trade. Looks like he's not returning, and he's on the open market. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with his situation. But he is a free agent now, so fun times. That's going to be an interesting pickup in the off-season, given what happened to him. Played for 3 teams this year. Wouldn't be allowed in football, literally. Anyway, moving on to the next one. 2 left. Dolphins at the Jets. Dolphins needed to win to stay alive. Actually, no, they were already eliminated, weren't they, by this time, I think. Yeah. Ended up falling anyway to the Jets, 32-20, in what could be Aaron Rodgers' last game. And given that it was almost his last game, potentially, he actually looked like a legitimate quarterback again for maybe the first time this season. Rodgers was 23 of 36 for 274, 4 touchdowns and a pick. Devontae Adams got his receiving touchdown. Rodgers, that touchdown, one of his last ones anyway, was his 500th in the NFL, which is something to sign off with, I guess. Miami really needed to get this game. I mean, just to have 9 wins and have a winning record, it would have been something to hang your hat on for this season. And Devon Achane, 11 carries for 121 yards and a touchdown. I mean, they've gone away from the run all year. Where has this been? Because the Jets' D-line is not bad. You are able to play this way if you want to, and they just don't do it enough. And Jonnu Smith, again, continues to get his yards, but the fallout from this game afterwards, Ash, I mean, all of the Dolphins' major stars who aren't rookies are all coming out saying they want to leave the team now, and it looks like a dumpster fire right now, and they're retaining their head coach and GM.
Yeah, it's almost as if, X's and O's aren't everything. Sometimes you can put them in the good positions, but you also need to know how to treat them like humans. Goes without saying, doesn't it? I did kind of predict it, didn't I? I said on the preview, I can just see the Jets winning. Like Aaron Rodgers decided, this is my last game, so let me just show a massive fuck you to everyone. This is what you're missing out on, and actually play well for once. And it kind of came true. Like getting obviously 4 touchdowns isn't too bad. Obviously, he always had his pick, but it happens, kind of thing. Brees Hall actually looked kind of okay again when it meant nothing. But you could say the same on the other side. You say like Achan finally remember how to be a running back. Jono Smith bouncing back. Jaden Waddle actually getting catches. Like too little, too late for both teams in a way. But at the same time, it just made it a kind of fun, one of them fun games again where like neither team had anything to play for. So both kind of were just putting it all out there in a way because they knew there was in the next week. So they're playing like it was their last dance. And hopefully for some of them, it would be.
And this is just, it's awful for 2 reasons. One, the dumpster fire happening in Miami, but also Aaron Rodgers actually having a nice way to sign off his career, I guess.
It was boring for 3 quarters, and then it got really exciting because they just started throwing shots at each other in the 4th quarter, and there was a ton of touchdowns, and then it became really fun. Yeah, just 2 teams who have been thoroughly disappointing, and I don't get why the Dolphins are keeping Mike McDaniel. He's now got a mutiny on his hands. He's going to lose all his best. But like, he at best has 1 year left to prove himself in this role. How's he going to do that when he's basically going to have to tear it down because his top players aren't going to play for him? You've got such uncertainty at the quarterback position because Tua can never stay healthy. And then behind that, you've got an offensive line that's just bad. You've got skill weapons, but they're probably all going to be gone. And then your defense is a bit leaky as well. Like, you're not close to being a competitive team, is my point. And he's at best got 1 year left. So why are they sticking with him when he's quite clearly not really going to be able to pull a rabbit out his arse? Because the cap sitch ain't the best either. So I'm just looking at this, I'm thinking, just tear it down again. You're another team like the Saints where you tried to go all in. You bought in all these high-priced free agents, trying to expedite the process, thinking you got enough there. It's not worked. Now just can it. Just tear it down, can it, start again. That's the only way you can do it. And that is what they need to do. It's what the Jets need to do as well. I mean, the Jets, for their most part, they've got actually a lot of young talent on their team. They've not drafted badly in these last few years. Again, you've just got to sort your quarterback situation out, and you could do worse if you're the Jets than going out and trying to find someone like a Trey Lance or one of these guys who might be able to be a bridgehead for you for a year. Or hell, make Ashes Day and give Jordan Travis a go.
Hey.
See what he can do there. You never know. But yeah, this is just 2 teams who need to blow it up and blow it up very quickly. Obviously, the Jets have been very thorough with their head coach search. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. Just if they hire Rex Ryan, then that's just going to be the greatest thing in the world, like ever. I'd just be fucking hilarious.
Please let it happen. I want it to happen. I love Rex Ryan.
So far that they're deciding not to send an interview request in for Ben.
Yeah, exactly. They've got a lot of people on that list. It's like 14, 15 strong.
They're interviewing to sort of get a segue into the next game. They're interviewing the 49ers QB coach as a potential head coach.
Yeah, like for what quarterback? You ain't got one.
Jordan.
Oh, for Jordan, but at the minute you ain't got one. So, I don't know what you do, but sorry. 2 franchises need to rip it down. Please do. Like the Dolphins just feel like they're forever in limbo. Like the Saints, they're happy to skirt around that 500 mark, but the Bills aren't going anywhere anytime soon. Like the Patriots will get better eventually, and the Jets are going through a regime change. So if they go for a rebuild, they're going to be behind the Jets if they wait any longer. Like the prospects just don't look good at this moment in time. So yeah, just they've really set themselves back by keeping McDaniel.
Yeah. Just on this game and the stats, I was just previewing them when you were talking, and something warmed my heart. For the Jets on defense, there was a sack for former Lions player and preseason hero Bruce Hector. Bruce Hector got a sack. Love it. Absolutely love it. He did great when he came in for a few games here and there for us, and always felt like he deserved a bit better than we could give him, and that was pretty cool, especially given that they're still playing in this game people like Hassan Reddick. How badly has that aged, by the way? Oh my god. Just... You're so right, and both teams need to just get rid and start over. Final game we're having a look at is the 49ers at the Cardinals, and Josh Dobbs started this game for the 49ers, and he threw for over 300 yards. If that sounds good, it's not, because Kyler Murray was 25 of 35 for 242, 4 touchdowns, no picks, whereas Dobbs threw 2 interceptions. And they also had 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground, Arizona. Ricky Pearsall getting 69 in a touchdown and Juszczyk getting 49 in a touchdown wasn't enough to save them in this game. Trey McBride got another receiving touchdown. Has the world gone mad? The 49ers and conceded 47 points in this game after conceding a huge amount to us. This has been a suboptimal end to a lost season for the 49ers.
Yeah, it's been difficult, and you know you just go again, right? I think at this point you just go again. They have had a lot of injuries, but I think what this season's shown is they need to flesh out that team a lot better. Maybe it is time to start moving on from some of these really big guys you've got to allow yourself more money, because you've got a lot of money tied up in the likes of Trent Williams and the likes of George Kittle and this, and you're going to have to pay Brock Purdy. I mean, that's going to be an interesting choice. Personally, I don't think they should do it, but you know, this team is obviously, it's top heavy, and so it's never going to win anything whilst it's top heavy. So, you know, that's going to be the interesting thing for them. And again, they do have a ton of talent, a ton of young talent on this team as well. So, you know, you need to flesh out the top of your roster a bit better. You'd expect them to be good again next year. Of course, Shanahan's going to go for it. He's not going to do anything stupid. They're just going to say, look, a lot of injuries hit, get everybody healthy over the summer, come back, we'll be NFC contenders again. And I would expect them to sort of move back up next year. The Cards, I just really want the Cards to be good. I really like Kyler Murray, and I know that team can be great. I just don't know what's holding them back at this point. He's got a lot of weapons to throw at. I think it's another defensive thing where they're going to need a few more guys. They've always seemed to me to be a little small on the defensive line. Need to get some girth there. Need to get a bit of steel in there, and you know, so you're not having to shoot it out every single game. But I don't know. I think both these teams are going to be fine, providing they are astute over the offseason. They'll be back and they'll be competing next year. And, you know, it's just a fun end of season one for both of them. They didn't care. They went out, left it all on the table. Again, a lot of good individual performances from some good players. Hey-ho, it is what it is.
Oh, Ash has just disappeared when I was about to throw to him. Come back. Come back, Ash. No, he's gone.
He's a Minnesota receiver. He vanishes just as you're about to throw it to him. Oh, no, wait. Alex Anzalone's got him. Bloody hell.
There was one more thing in this game I just wanted to mention, which was Juwan Jennings. Juwan Jennings came into this game needing 77 yards for 1,000 yards on the season. I'm not sure if there was a financial incentive for him to get that, but it's just a big milestone, especially for a guy who's dug out a reputation as a primarily blocking receiver with upside. That upside has come really strong this year, and he got himself ejected 25 yards short of what he needed. I mean, I think he did exactly the same as what he did to our guy last week. And he got ejected.
Him and Murphy Bunting were fighting for several plays. Like, they both got ejected at the same time. They were both fighting one another. It was hilarious, to be fair. But you know what? I don't feel any sympathy for Juwan Jennings. Good. I'm glad you missed out on your incentive because your breakout year screwed up Debo's year for my fantasy football team. So that's payback. No money for you. But it was quite funny. They were really going at one another. Like every play, they were just locking up and like immediately just throwing fists with one another, not even trying to play football. It's good old-fashioned ball, is the way they say. I love to see there's some. You need to see a bit more of it in the league, a bit more passion than that. But yeah, they both rightfully got ejected. I think Starling was in this one. He didn't do bags. He had to come in relief, but Starling looks okay. I'm glad Starling's caught on.
Yeah, Starling
I really wanted Starling to work here. But he came in when Murphy Bunting got tossed and he looked decent. So I'm glad he's doing well.
I think he's been low-key great when he's played.
Yes.
So yeah, long may that continue.
Yeah, good for him.
Right. Oh, Ash is back. We were just talking about Juwan Jennings getting ejected.
See, that's the sad thing. Like, because my phone keeps overheating because I'm over hotspot. That's how I keep drop out. It's sad because I'm probably going to say the complete opposite of what Ant's probably said because I'm guessing there was some mention of fantasy. I'm really happy at his breakout season. I've hated it how he's ended it this past 2 weeks with stuff last week with TA and Kirby. Now I'm getting to fight Sean Murphy Bunting. Like, you were really putting yourself a case out there for another team who might need that kind of X body that won't be the first option, but needs something to block on the outside. And if they need a tough contested catch, they can do it. Kind of like what I was calling out for us last season after we lost Josh Reynolds. Obviously, now we've got Tim Patrick in that role, but let's say we didn't have Tim Patrick, I would heavily be making the case for Juwan Jennings. He's fucked up for the past week and a half, 2 weeks now with what he's done. So he's probably going to be stuck there forever now. And next season, they won't be that poor in the receiving game. Kittle will be consistent all year through instead of having the down years. Ayuk will be back to his usual, well, either him or Debo, whichever one they keep. Jacob Cowan will probably get more looks as he's finally getting integrated into the system with his catches. Parcel will probably become their receiver one. He's lost his chance to really go and make himself a bag. So it's kind of sad, especially since I've been talking him up all season. Fair play to Josh Dobbs coming in, the astronaut, doing what he needs to do behind a relatively poor offensive line, did the best he could. But yeah, Kyler, me and you both said it in the, I think me and Matt definitely said it. I think other people probably said it as well. But dark horse MVP candidate if everything went right. It kind of did. But yeah, just needed a bit more consistency from his pass catchers. Like Trey McBride actually, getting touchdowns. Like, of course, he waits till fantasy is pretty much over to start catching them, the bastard. Do it like that. They just need they need a bit more pass rush on the defense. Kind of ironic that their best pass rusher the past couple of seasons, Zach Allen, they let him go. He goes to Denver and he has an absolute breakout season. They just need to get better at scouting on defense, the defense for me, because they've got the system there. They've got the head coach for it. Just need to get the players for it. The only downside for Cardinals is where's Trey? This is the perfect chance to give him a run. Where's Trey? What have you done to him? Where's he gone? Trey Benson.
He's injured, isn't he?
Has he? Is he?
I thought Trey Benson was out for the season with an injury.
Hell froze over as well because Julian Aquara got a sack.
What?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Trey Benson's on IR.
He is. He is on IR. He did put him on IR last week with Connor. There's both my running backs like him there. But yeah, hang on. Julian got a sack. Jesus.
Amazing.
Yeah, which means he's due an injury now. And I don't say that as in I want him to, but that's just what he does. He does something and then he gets hurt.
How cool was it to see Romeo just before the Vikings game, sharing all the images of us beating the Vikings to win the division last year? That was really cool. You guys know how much I love Romeo. Yeah, that gave me some feels.
Those brothers could have been something special if the injury bug stayed away. And unfortunately, injury just banjacks both of them. At least Romeo had a good season before it did, though.
Yeah.
Right, that is going to be our show. We've been going for a while. So our next episode is going to be a college football podcast. And what are you going to be talking about?
I was about to say, do you want to quickly predict the playoffs first? Because we'll not have a show before the playoffs, will we?
Oh, I thought you were going to do one before. Oh, the wild card.
Wild card for the NFL.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, all right, let's do it.
Watch up.
I'm getting pick watch up. I'm doing it. Yeah. I'm doing it.
Do it, yeah.
Good shout.
Actually,
Good
you just
shout,
mentioned
Ant.
college. You just mentioned college. Like a little while you get that up, I can do that little like news break. Coastal Cow hiring Grayson McCall as an offensive assistant.
Oh, that's good for him.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
move.
That's
I like
good
that.
for him. I like that. He'll do well. You might see him as a young head coach in 3 or 4 years' time.
Ooh,
He
I can
could be.
back that.
He could be good.
Right, super wildcard weekend then. First up on the slate is the 4:30 kick. Chargers at the Houston Texans. The Chargers are favoured on the road by 3, boys. Ant, what do you think?
To me, this is the only game that I'm truly looking forward to this week because I think I don't know. I genuinely don't know who's going to win this. Because I'm not as down on the Texans as some people are. I think the Texans are still a good football team. And they've got the home advantage. The Energy Stadium's a good home environment for them. And the Chargers, it's not familiar territory for them. A lot of them haven't been to the playoffs, especially in recent years as well. The Texans have. So I think this is going to be a special game between two really good quarterbacks, a hell of a lot of good skill players on both sides of the ball. This is literally going to be whose defense can play better. Whoever's defense can play better is going to win this game. It's going to maybe just that one stop that it's going to require. I think it's going to be. This feels like a 60-pointer. What's the over/under for it? Do you have it? Or
I don't, but I can do very quickly.
I reckon it's going to be up to like 57, 58, something
Over
like that.
under for this game is 42.5.
What? 42?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So it's because the Chargers defense is the best part of that team and the Texans defense is the best part of that team.
Oh no. I think their offenses are both really good. It's very tough. My instinct wants me to lean very slightly towards the Chargers because they are different under Jim Harbaugh. Yeah, I will pick the Chargers, but I think it's going to be like, what's the spread? 3, did you say?
3.
I think it's one of those that the Texans could cover. This feels like a one-pointer. Wouldn't surprise me if they hit a walk-off field goal or something, to put the years of bad juju behind them when Chargers had always Charger type thing. It feels like they're due a walk-off now. So I'm going to say that.
Ash?
For me, it comes down to because both have got really good pass rushes, which the offensive line's better, and it's the Chargers one. Joe Walter's been damn good, and if he's a dark horse candidate for offensive rookie, I know offensive line do not get shouts for it, but he's been really damn good. I can see the Chargers offensive line doing better against the Texans pass rush than vice versa, and that's going to be the winning factor for me. So give me the Chargers.
Yeah, I think the Chargers are going to win fairly comfortably. I'm not down on the Texans as a project overall, but you can't live with that offensive line. And when you have a look at what the Chargers have on their defensive line, it's going to be a massacre. Like, I don't think it's going to be particularly close. The only question I have is, can the Chargers run the ball? If the Chargers can run the ball, this will be a couple of scores game because I just don't think Stroud's going to be able to have enough time to pass it. And who's he throwing to? Like, the Texans have just been hit so badly by injury that it's a horrible matchup, I think, for Houston. The only thing is that DB room is still fantastic. That back 7 for Houston's great. So is that enough? I don't think so. So give me the Chargers significantly. Next up, Steelers at Ravens. Ravens are favoured by 10 on Saturday night. Ash, you're first up. That seems like a crazy spread.
It definitely is crazy. So I will pick the Steelers to cover it just by default of it just being insane. But I can see the Ravens winning. I know it's a divisional matchup and any rematch again, and anything could happen. But just Derrick Henry will probably take over because it'll be one of them where both teams will probably not do so well passing the ball, so it's whoever can run it better. And unfortunately, that's just advantage Ravens.
And
I think the Ravens will win and cover easy. Like, I love the Steelers. I like what they do, but they just, at the minute, they're flatter than roller cola. Like, there's nothing to them. And, this goes back to the whole Tomlin thing. Not that I don't think he doesn't care, but this team has just meandered through this last month of the season. They've lost 4 on the bounce, and they don't really seem to care that they've lost 4 on the bounce. There's been no reaction. There's been no, visible thing where they're on the field trying to fight really hard. It's like, we're in the playoffs. Yeah, we're just going to get there. Yeah, we're going to get bounced in the first round. Who cares? We've got our 500 record. That's all that matters. That's what that franchise is now. It doesn't actually care about doing anything significant. It just cares about getting its bottom line. And I've just seen nothing from them recently which suggests they're going to be able to cause the Ravens any problems. The Ravens are just dominant on both sides of the ball. Their defense is suffocating. They're not going to be able to get anything. The only way the Steelers win this is if their defense gets 2 or 3 touchdowns, turnovers, special teams cracks off a big play or something like that, and I just don't see it, and it's a shame because I know that team is hella talented, but it's a mindset, y'all, and they're just not built to be competitive in the playoffs anymore.
Strong take. I'm not going to be swayed by it, but I respect it. I buy it, but I'm going to have Ravens winning, Steelers covering. I just think the 10 points is too great for a defense like the Steelers that, despite the offense not really functioning anymore, they still come to play. And the Steelers still have the Ravens number a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if Baltimore have to come back in this game from a small deficit maybe at the end of the first half, kind of go into the second, and then maybe pull away with a couple of scores, but it's still like a 7-point game, 8-point game at the end. Something like that. We'll see. Anyway, next up is the Sunday slate, and we start off with a 1 p.m. kick. It's Broncos at Bills. And Ash, you're first up for this one. 8.5-point spreads. What do you think?
It's kind of similar to obviously the game we just discussed, where the weather will probably be a factor. So both teams will probably be poorer passing the ball, but the Bills have the advantage there because slightly better QB, slightly better weapons. I actually think the Broncos have got a slightly better offensive line. Quinn Minus has got the lowest pressure rate allowed of any starting offensive lineman this year by like a good 2%. It's insane. But it comes down to running the ball. And you've just seen this year, James Cook break out. Ray Davis has done enough. Ty Johnson has done stuff. And you look what the Broncos have got, and it's not great. So in a situation where it might have to be whichever team can run the ball better, it's advantage Bills.
And
yeah, I have to say the Bills win this. I hate the Bills, and I like to hate on the Bills, but I don't know if the Broncos are ready just yet. Like, it's good they're back in the playoffs, but the only way they could be hurt is if Peyton outcoaches McDermott, and that's the only thing McDermott still got against him is they mess up. They got the Chiefs in their gaff last year. They had the perfect opportunity to put them down, and they lost. And the Bills lose in clutch games, kind of like Shanahan. He's got that tag on him. So, but I don't think the Broncos are big enough to upset him. I think in the next round when they've got to play Baltimore, that's when we'll see what they're made of. But I think they'll be fine here. But I just want Denver to put up a good fight. That's all I want. Because this wildcard weekend threatens to be really boring with some of these if these teams get ahead and there's just nothing to it. So
I am picking the Bills to win, but the Broncos to cover. I think that Nix has got that winning mentality and grit and the will to win that you see from those other sort of elite. He's got elite quarterback traits without quite being an elite quarterback. Like, his will to win is massive. He just hauls teams over the line, and where your rushing attack is going to be a big portion of where you win this game if the weather is going to be bad. Well, Nix is a good rusher. Like, not Josh Allen style, but he's a good rusher. He adds a lot to that rushing offense. And Denver has a poor rushing attack overall, but they've got a great defense, a great defensive line. So I think it's a good matchup for the Bills. I think the Bills win, but with some difficulty in this game. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a walk-off field goal for the Bills, being behind. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if Denver win this game. So it's just a bad matchup for the Bills. Next one, afternoon kick, is 4:30 on Sunday. It's the Packers at the Eagles. Could be a Jalen Hurts-less Eagles. Christian Watson obviously doesn't go. Jordan Love is banged up. This could be a dumpster fire of a game, and I'm absolutely here for it. And what do you think? 4 points in favour of the Eagles at home.
I think the Eagles will win. See, the Eagles can always rely on their trenches to get them out of a spot if they need to. And like the Bears were able to get pressure on Love, despite not have been having as good a line as what the Eagles do. The Eagles' defense is playing quite well, so I fancy them to manufacture opportunities there and be able to create this, even without him. I think because Saquon's that good. Tanner only needs to be average, and Saquon be good, and they'll put up points. So I expect the Eagles to do it. I expect them to. What's the cover for this?
4.
4. They'll cover it because in the last minute, Reed Blankenship will pick 6 Malik Willis.
Ash?
Yeah, the Packers have just fallen off a cliff, and I know obviously the Eagles will be rusty after sitting everyone, but there's no way the Packers can take advantage of that because Love will be shook up at best. At worst, he won't be there, and it'll be Willis. The offensive line will tie up against Josh Jacobs trying to shut him down. So it'll be a pace of the passing game. And who do you trust more, the Eagles DBs or the Packers wide receivers? It's Eagles DBs. So yeah, Philly win and they cover.
I don't agree. Packers. Straight up. There have been games this season where Josh Jacobs has completely taken over in games in a way that has exceeded any running back in this season. I mean, he's had like 150-yard quarters this year. And I really think that the Packers might dominate on the ground. And I know that seems strange when we're talking about an Eagles team that can run like they can. But this was an Eagles team that forgot how to play offense for a good portion of this season. And I know they went on a massive winning run. But they managed to somehow lose that Commanders game 2 weeks ago. And since then, they've had layup games in division that they haven't looked great in, and Hurts has been out. And this organization's kind of been beaten up, but taking easy wins and making them look difficult. It's not a recipe for success going into the playoffs for me. And the Packers haven't looked great going in either. They just lost a game to the fucking Bears. But there's something about the Packers in the postseason, right? They did this to the 49ers last season in this spot. I think they're going to do it again against a team that everyone thinks they should lose to. And I think they're going to roll them over. It wasn't the 49ers. It was
the Cowboys.
Cowboys. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you. Saving me from myself.
So you have bet against the Packers all season, and now you're saying they're going to roll over the 13-win Eagles on the road in the playoffs.
He's learned from me. He's doing a reverse jinx. I finally got through to him.
This is not a reverse jinx. It's not a reverse jinx. I haven't bet against the Packers all year. I did learn from my mistakes at some point.
The vast majority of the year.
I actually want to see what my record has been picking the Packers this year. It's probably
you had the Packers losing to the Jags once upon a time.
So the Packers are my second worst pick team this year. I'm 8-9 straight up.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I'm going to be wrong again then, because clearly you're both better than me at this. So it's all good. It's all good. Last 2 games. Last one on Sunday is the Commanders at the Buccaneers. I'm not quite sure I buy the line. It's a 3-point spread in favour of the Bucs at home. This is going to be a really weird one. I don't know where I finished with the last one, but I'll go to Ant for this. Ant, what do you think, mate?
I'm really looking forward to this game.
Yeah.
Like, there's one on either side of the docket. I mean, Selfishly, from the Lions' point of view, I do want the Commanders to win because I don't want to play any of those jag-offs in the Monday Night Football game. So I want one of the lower seeds to win, and of course I don't want it to be the Packers. But at the same time, I really like the Bucks, and I want the Bucks to keep going forward as well. But that means we've got to play one of the jag-offs from Monday Night Football. So it's very tough here because Baker's such a good redemption story. And then Jaden Daniels has had such a good rookie campaign on that absolutely horrific Washington team. Like, it's genuinely two teams I like, and I don't want one of them to lose. My gut is telling me that Washington can do it, because Washington have found a lot of ways to win games this season they probably shouldn't have. They found a way to pull it out their ass, and they've got good enough trenches to hang with Tampa. And for as much as I like Tampa, they have looked vulnerable in recent games, in recent weeks. And they've looked vulnerable all season. So I can see the upset coming here. And again, it's not because I just want us to face the 6th seed and have a fresh matchup this year. I do genuinely think the Commanders can do it. But I think it will be very fun. I think this will be a very close, very competitive game and worthy of the playoffs.
Ash?
For me, it comes down to one matchup and one matchup alone, and that's Daniels against the Buck split scheme. If Daniels is able to handle that, find the ball into the right places at the right times, or scramble at the right times to avoid the blitz, the Commanders can win. It really comes down to that because Baker's on a tear right now. Mike Evans will beat whichever cornerback the Commanders put on him. So it really will come down to can Jaden Daniels and the Commanders offense keep score with the Bucks. And I can certainly see them doing that. I really can. But just because historically the Bucks have got more like good credit in showing me I can trust them a bit more in the offense in the playoffs than I can the Commanders right now. I am picking them, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Commanders do it.
I'm picking the Commanders straight up, which means I'm picking a lot of away teams. But hey, I just think the Commanders have more in the bag, and I trust them a bit more, and I don't really know why. I have no logic to this. I'm not going to pretend I do. There's not many times I pick with my heart as opposed to my head. This is one of those. Last one is the 5 seed Vikings at the 4 seed LA Rams. The Vikings are favoured, but only by 1.5 on the road. Ash, you're first up this time. What do you think?
I think either way, I'm not happy with whoever wins, but I can see the Rams with the way that their defensive lines come through this year with Fisk versus obviously 2 guys I really loved, but Kobe Turner as well, the guy who broke out last year and now stuck at that Aaron Donald role. Given what we've just done to the Vikings, we've kind of set that precedent of how to beat them. With their defensive line, I think they can get pressure on Darnold and just catastrophize him. It really will be, can their corners, which aren't the best, admittedly, even compared to ours, they're not that good. Can they hold up long enough against Jefferson and Addison? I just don't think they can. So I'm picking the Vikings, but I hate it either way. I don't want either of them to win. Could we suddenly unprecedented things swap like the Bucks for the Vikings? And then have Commanders beat the Vikings and the Bucks beat the Rams. That'd be much nicer.
And
I mean, you're basically asking me whether I want to die via strangulation or drowning. Like, I don't want to go either way, to be fair. So, do you have a pick in mind, Matt? Because if not, I want to rock, paper, scissors this.
I definitely have a pick in mind. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'd love to rock, paper, scissors it with you, but I'm not going to because I know who's going to win this game.
Right, you go first because I just don't know.
This is one I will be putting real money on, and I will be putting an alternative spread on. I'm picking the Vikings to win by 3 scores. I'm picking the Vikings to win by 21. They are so much better than the Rams. And I know it's away. You don't think the Vikings are going to send a load of their fans over to that stadium? They already can't sell it out anyway. Like, They're going to pack the stadium. It's going to feel like a home game for the Minnesota Vikings. Darnold isn't going to have 2 games like that. That defense is going to massacre that offensive line, which has been rebuilt, but doesn't look as good as it should be considering what they've invested in it. And that defense is frisky for the Rams. But the Vikings' offensive line is pretty good. And their weapons are excellent. We know what it's like. We've dealt with it. The Rams aren't going to deal with it like us. They just won't. McVay knows better than we do. And that will be his downfall. So, Vikings by 1 million. As Ant has disappeared for his pick. Is he rock, paper, scissoring with himself? I don't know.
Sounds like what Aaron was doing in the darkness retreat.
What do you think, man? Ant?
1 second.
Oh, is this a Google Translate thing?
Oh, no.
No, it's only one way to do this. Right. Heads is Rams. Tails is Vikings. It's heads, so Rams. Screw the pair of them, though.
Yeah, fuck the both of them.
Yeah, completely agree with that sentiment. Right, that is our show. We have got through that. Thank you for reminding me that we hadn't picked that because we weren't going to have another show. There will be no show for us this Thursday, with it being a bye week. We're going to take a show off and take some downtime and just enjoy the wildcard weekend for what it is. But what's not taking a bye week is the college football podcast, which, Ant, what are you talking about?
We're doing the Hula Bowl this week because it's on the 11th coming up. So this Saturday, the path to the draft starts already. Seems weird given the Lions haven't only just finished their regular season, but yeah, it's all underway now. So we're picking our favourite players out of those rosters, just names to point out for this one. And then obviously we'll be doing that going forward now. So yeah, Hula Bowl stuff and then semi-final previews, I guess, for the playoffs.
Love it.
And the FCS playoff is tonight. So if anyone wants any more football tonight, Montana State versus North Dakota State at midnight tonight. So even more football for you.
Sounds great. Fantastic. So our next show is going to be next Monday. And that won't be the preview show for the divisional round because that will be that Thursday. So Monday, we might do something a little different. It could be a mailbag. It could be something else like that. If you've got any ideas for anything that you'd like us to do, give us a shout because we're open to suggestions. But otherwise, I will open the mailbag come the weekend, and then hopefully we'll have lots of just good stuff to chat about, and maybe just have a look back at the weekend that was for the wildcard round. So that could be quite fun just to chat about those games too. So with no further ado, just have to thank actually OnePrido47 for subscribing on Twitch at Tier 1 for their 21st month. Says Victory Monday after sweeping the division is pretty sweet. Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate you very much. And to all the guys who've been sending us the bits and subscriptions on Twitch and the super chats on YouTube. Appreciate you all very, very much, especially with us making it over the line as a team. Number 1 seed's been absolutely fantastic. And the season extends, thank God. Especially with no wildcard matchup. We can't lose the game we don't play. Do you think we're going to win our bye this time?
If Monty comes back, then yes. If Monty comes back and TA isn't too badly hurt, then yes.
How about that? Turning that on its head. Do the Lions win their bye week? Well, they've got 2 this year. Fuck you guys.
Biggest win of bye week is that we don't have to do another Monday night football thing.
I know. It's absolute killer. Right. In the chat, we hope you have, and listeners as well, we hope you have a fantastic week. Enjoy a wildcard weekend. We'll see you next week for the divisional preview and maybe a mailbag. Check out the guys for the draft stuff, the Hula Bowl, CFP semi-finals, all that stuff. But anyway, and Ash, thanks for doing this for me. Thank you to Steve, who left us a little bit earlier as well. 15 wins. Are we dreaming? I don't know where I'm going with that, but man, it feels good to be a Lions fan.
Pinch yourself.
Yeah,
Pinch yourself to check.
Exactly. Let's go, Lions.
Should have said, can you dig it? And then me and Ash could have gone, yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
And with that, let's go, Lions. One pride.
One pride.
Recording stopped.